The following program deals with a controversial
subject.
The theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation.
The viewer is invited to make a judgment based on all available information.
the top talents in the comic book business are here to tell everything they know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 44 of the Industry of Comics show. Here every Tuesday night live on Beyond Wednesdays. I'm here with Jesse and Dennis, my two longtime compadres now. It's been a long time. It's 44 episodes. Yeah. We can call that a long time now. So
yeah.
Excellent show last
12 episodes is long. So
yeah. Excellent show last week. We had a lot of fun doing it. A lot of extra conversation behind the scenes about that show, which was very interesting. Big thank you to Swag for jumping on, which, it was nice to have him on here because he's been doing a lot of research on, that game and seeing how it might correlate to secondary market sales and stuff like that. And then, of course, we had Dennis, your son Alex, on, which was interesting because I heard a couple of people be like, what's he doing having this kid on? And I'm like, he's 21 years old, you guys.
Yeah.
And I didn't really get to talk about it that much, but I can tell you this. My son and my daughter growing up in this world, like their entire lives, like my son was 1 when we opened the store. My daughter was born after we opened the store. And I can't stress to you, all retailers out there, they have guided the ship in every direction that it has gone. Until I've just recently literally I've taken my hands off the wheel and I steer it to wherever they're, aimed. I knew I used to take them to this anime show that we only did to get rid of excess stock. And there was this one period of time where all of a sudden, Dad's making us go to Youmacon again. Okay, we'll go. And then I was like, hey, Dad, are we going to Youmacon this year? Yeah, why? Oh, because we're anime fans now. And, we watch all this anime. And do we have to work the booth the whole time? No, you don't have to work the booth the whole time. And it was just like, boop, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it was just, and I mean, Jesse, you have the life of that,
Right, exactly. Then that's why I was just getting ready to say, look at how many guests we have had on that started collecting comics between 11 and 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
11 and 14 years old in the 80s, growing up, guiding it in the minds of becoming writers and artists and publishers, comic book store owners, and being able to live that dream and bring it to this very moment. So it's kind of fun when Dennis says that they're guiding us. We have all guided in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, speaking of guests, ladies and gentlemen, a regular guest on this show, we bring you Emmett from Haven for Heroes. Emmett, how you doing, buddy?
All right.
What's going on, fellas?
Youngsters guiding the industry.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Here's all the youngins. So much gray. We should create the Gray Comic Club.
Okay, yeah. So have you gotten ready for your all-night ride coming up in 8 days?
Yeah, I got a big sack in my sleigh. I was just reading Dennis's Facebook where he was talking about his. I think we had heart surgery at the same time.
Oh, really? 7 years ago?
Yeah, mine was 2017. Yeah, November
7 years ago.
2017. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I will say, I didn't live the healthiest of lifestyles back then, but it was 2 days after the release of The Last Jedi. So.
Yeah, neither did I.
Yeah.
They couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe that I needed a quad at 50.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, I learned very fast. We put a Monster drink machine in the store. And after like 6 months, I'm like, I'll take that Monster. And I was getting big checks, huge checks.
Yeah.
Because all those gamers, that's all they wanted. And I'm like, no, you got to get that machine out of here.
Well, and not to bring it all the way down, but my buddy who was literally a Bitcoin millionaire, sold me my Bitcoin 3 years ago. And he was an energy drink fiend. I mean, 6, 7 a day. Died of a stroke 2 years ago. I mean, this was the moment he would have lived for. You know, he was a Bitcoin millionaire when it was at 33 a coin. He's a multi-Bitcoin millionaire if he's alive today.
Wow. What happened to all the Bitcoin? Did it go bye-bye?
It's sitting in a phone at his parents' house. Trust me. Yeah, and they don't want to have to deal with it. And I was just like, yep, no, that's you know what? That's on them. I can't.
I saw a article that says that there is so many millions of dollars of Bitcoin that are in situations like that.
20% of all Bitcoins have been inactive for over 2 or 3 years or 4 years or something like that. So that means either they're not touching it or it is lost to time.
Wow.
But it just makes what's left rarer.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, one of the things that I want to talk about is, you know, we had a really good show on Wednesday night. We had Brian Polito, Jimmy Palmiotti, and Billy Tucci on to talk about their new Kickstarter book, Deadly Trio #1, which was a lot of fun. That type of fun, like really cool stuff. And the one of the things, yeah, like that type of, what is that? Is that like
what is that?
That's a solo, a guitar solo, that type of fun. That's what I'm talking about. Stevie Vai type shit.
To hear his phone.
Yeah.
I dropped my phone and I broke it. Now I can't silence it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So anyways, one of the things that you know, Brian brought up was the fact that he's starting his own crowdfunding platform. And I'm just going to let you guys go ahead and check it out. Here we go. Let's let Brian tell the story, right?
And it's looking good. So this Lady Death Demonicron is a side scroller. It's hand animated. Actually, Coffin Comics has launched its own crowdfunding platform called Coffin Launch, something we've been working on for over 1 year. And we are launching our next campaign, a Lady Death Savage Reign, on Coffin Launch.
Ooh. So Brian, who has been at the forefront of this crowdfunding comic book world, continues to get smarter by the day, which is crazy, you know, and decides we're going to just do it ourselves. And he's starting his own crowdfunding platform called Coffin Launch, which is super smart, super cool. But it got me to start thinking about, you know, the different markets. And Jesse, before we get into the talk about the fourth market, which is basically what we're calling that, I want to kind of remind everybody, what are the other three markets out there?
So you have markets in the comic book world. Keep in mind, in the comic book world, it's different than other businesses and under other industries. So obviously, the first market is comic book stores. The second market is big box stores, Barnes and Nobles, Books A Million. That's kind of your second market. Third market is eBay, live streaming, Amazon, whoever else, right?
And this is where Jesse and I could argue.
Yeah. So, and then you got, you come in afterwards. And then the fourth market is basically going to this new level, which kind of sounds like the second and third market, but it's having a little bit more destiny control with your customer base on a Kickstarter. That could be very, very interesting because you are now creating your own rules in that fourth market. And so first, second, and third, Dennis, I know you have a different way of 1, 2, 3. We'll listen to that way. But basically, you have three different markets. Now we have this fourth market coming in that's not defined. And I think that fourth market is then be amazing. One other point I want to make up. We had talked about color schemes about 5, maybe 10 shows ago. Brian is launching this in all green. And so we had talked about the power of Starbucks being green, and that was very important. That's how he's launching this fourth.
He's beyond smart when it comes to how he sells his brand. And I got to be honest, when I think of like this whole fourth market thing, the first thing that comes to my mind is Sworn Nation. And being able to basically sell your brand and create your own market, right? That's like what it is to me, the fourth market. You're creating it yourself, you're creating the IP, and then you're telling the people, okay, here's where you can come and get that product, and also be around your other friends and create this community aspect. And to me, Sworn Nation is the the framework for what the fourth market is to me as of this point. And we're going to get into this conversation pretty deep.
And
so
let me get in here just with, because I disagree with Jesse on this, not in the principle, just in the numbering. To me, the first market is anybody who receives a comic book through a distribution chain or however they get it from the publisher of that comic book. It started with newsstands. They all came from a distributor. They came from a publisher to a distributor to a newsstand. Somewhere around 1960s, there was the second market. And comic book stores trickled in there, but not really until the 70s.
71.
The second market was what I call the feeder market. And that's when the retailers of those comic books and the secondary aspect of those comic books went out and organized events where the consumer came to them, and they were the second market for the aftermarket of those comic books. That's your comic book conventions. That has always been, to me, the holy gospel of second market, because the comic book retailer at those comic book conventions were not receiving those from a distributor. The only place you could get them at that time was from a newsstand, from a comic book store, or from buying a collection of somebody who was selling off all their comic books. Right. So the second market is conventions.
I just want to say one thing. You're talking about selling markets. I'm talking about selling platforms.
Okay,
so
but
that's
no. But you put big box in market one or in market two.
Market two.
Right. That, to me, that's not a different selling platform. That's just a bigger comic book shop that also sells other stuff.
No.
Yes.
What do you feel a big box store is equal to a local comic book store?
For me, retail is retail.
Thank
if
you.
They're selling it retail. It's second market for me is anybody who takes it then and either adds or subtracts value.
Exactly.
So if you're selling the comics at a discount or you're selling it at a premium, you're at the second market.
Now, so I put the third market as being eBay. As the emergence came, eBay is the third market. Now, because you added an extra platform to that, you used to call the Comic Book Shopping Network the third market. And I had to correct you on that, and I still correct you on that. You're the fourth market. That's where you have opened up a new platform, which is where I will agree with you. You've opened up a new platform, a new launch mechanism beyond the comic book shop and store, beyond the convention, beyond just putting your books out there on a marketplace, an online marketplace. Because if you remember, there were rec forums back in the old days. Yeah. That to me is same as eBay. That's
here's where I disagree with that now, though. And the reason I disagree with that now is things have changed. Okay, I agree. I think that the first market is distribution. The comic book stores, the newsstands, those are the first market. I agree. Second market is the conventions, the flea markets, the rummage sales. That's second market. Third market to me is both eBay, eBay Live, whatnot. I think you have to I think at this point you have to push those in together because they've become so closely, and that's like the internet. Having the internet be able to buy stuff on the third market. Now the fourth market. Hold on. The fourth market changes everything because the fourth market has that special touch to it, which is like you're doing more to cultivate that buying group rather than just putting it on eBay and letting the eBay find that group for you. You're cultivating that group like Bryant has done with Sworn Nation. You're cultivating that group, like maybe the Comicsgate guys have done with the Comicsgate group. Like, and crowdfunding is such a big part of that I think makes it the fourth market.
The why I differentiate by just lumping eBay Live in with eBay is because, and just try to get the semantics of this. eBay is you taking your product and putting it on a marketplace and just letting it go for anybody who's there. eBay Live, or what Jesse did with Facebook and Comic Book Shopping Network at the beginning, is you are inviting the customer to come to you and have the exclusive event of buying from you as that experience. So to me, it's a difference of if I put an Action Comics #1 on eBay, anybody and their brother can bid on that.
Same with eBay Live.
They don't know it's
eBay Live. You have to go to that show and watch that show at that time. If you decided you're not going to buy anything from 12 to 5, and that show is 12 to 5, you ain't getting that Action Comics #1.
So bottom line, we agree on first and third, technically, marginally on third, and then we got that fourth. So let's get back to the fourth.
I call Brian. Absolutely, I agree with you because I never considered it the fifth market. I consider what they're doing as a boiling down of the distribution model for part 1, them running out to conventions for part 2, them creating an eBay store or an Etsy store or whatever to sell their product. And they're definitely not doing the eBay Live thing or the whatnot like Rob Liefeld's doing. They have figured out a way to take themselves and put an extra finger over here as the artist. They're now the publisher. They're now the retailer. They're now the marketer. They're now so they're, to me, the fifth market. This is a fifth market move where they have boiled away all of the other middlemen, which I've been preaching about for
what Dennis is so good at? Dennis is so good at ruining my titles, my thumbnails, everything.
My head. I'm like, did you not see what the banner says? What the hell is going on here tonight?
Fifth market. Chat. Am I right or am I wrong?
4.5.
We're gonna okay. So let's ask the live chat and anybody that watches this on the replay. You guys tell me what you think the markets are. Again, my thought process is maybe when live selling first started, it was a different market, but now I think that it's become that those markets are the same. I think eBay, whatnot, eBay Live, Etsy, I think all those are the same marketplace now because just anybody can go on there and do it. You're not creating that community base. You're not creating that buyer base. eBay is still sending out all the push notifications. eBay Live is still sending out all the push notifications. Whatnot, still sending all the push notifications to their.
It's a different buying experience.
Than what?
The 3 and 4 are different buying experiences.
Yes.
So buying on eBay with in the dark in front of your computer with nobody talking to you, and you're just searching through is a totally different experience than Whatnot, eBay Live, the comic book shopping network was probably the birth of it, really.
Yeah,
Someone
sure.
stole your idea, brother.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a totally different experience. So that's where the market is. That's why I think that's the fourth market. And that now, and it's been around for a while. Everybody's been platforming their own stuff on Kickstarter, so the fifth market has been around.
Well, and let me also,
and like he says, is having everybody, in one place, no middlemen.
Right. But once again, I think Sequential Geek in the chat has nailed another part why fifth market should be also separate, especially with the genius of Brian doing what he's doing. The first market, somebody's taken 25 to 50%. The newsstands used to take 25%, for you putting the books out, and then, that was your profit, was 25%. When the distribution model happened, somebody's taken 50%, as well as the distributor taking another 10 points from the publisher. Okay. Then you get to the second market. Somebody's charging you for your booth at a comic book convention. Somebody's taking a point. Then you go third market, eBay. eBay's taking 12 to 15%.
They're still doing that on their live market too.
Right. But the live market, they take a different percent than they do for their other market. Jesse, what's the difference on, like, Whatnot used to take 12 plus a couple extra
13% is Whatnot right now.
Yeah. So I'm a Godfather account, so it's a little bit different from me. But if you take the basic account, you're looking at paying anywhere from 10 to 13% on eBay, whether it's live or whether it's standard.
So it's the same. It's the same percentage you're getting taken out either live or eBay proper.
Okay, but somebody's taking a point.
So that's what I mean. That's why it's become it's merged as the same market.
Look at Brian Pulido and this fifth market. Okay, yes, somebody was taking a point when it was just Kickstarter, Indiegogo, etc. But now Brian's figured out a way to say, I made $1 million last year. Kickstarter took 15% of that. That's $150,000. I could put that same $150,000 into infrastructure, and I'll never pay that 15% again. So it's my idea, my talent, whoever I paid to do the rest of the book, and I take 100% of what I sell now.
Right, but I think the bigger picture is because he has a base that allows him to do that.
But this also allows everyone else to start creating their bases to do this as well.
Not at this level. I think it takes you years to say, okay, I don't need the help of Kickstarter and those extra eyes. Right?
Yeah, but Jesse, I mean, if we hadn't have had what I call the three biggest needle movers when it comes to crowdfunding, if we hadn't have had Boom's Berserker Kickstarter, we hadn't have had Kirkman's G.I. Joe, and now Nikki Barucci's Thundercats, these kind of projects have shown that that puts this fifth market into play as a separate entity.
I'll be right back. You guys continue.
From the other four markets.
Yeah, I think that those three guys were following Brian. I think Brian was out there.
Oh no, absolutely.
Incrementally, every time he kept beating his number every single time. It was amazing. To hit home run after home run,
and if you know Brian's history, you understand why he did this. Every time he signed with another company, Chaos, and then Avatar, and then Image, all of these. They all just nicked away at his IPs piece by piece until he said, fuck you guys, I'm not playing your game anymore. And that's why Brian's Brian.
Yep. Yeah. And I think, keep in mind on Kickstarter, I don't know all the numbers, but I can tell you when you look at the massive numbers it's done this year, it's because of those bottom tier 400 or 500 Kickstarters that actually made it. You add up all those numbers, that's a lot of good numbers there for someone just hitting 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, getting the job done, hitting their goals. And of course, you go increments 10, 20, 30. So if you take out those top five, I still think Kickstarter and crowdfunding as a whole did very well.
and as somebody in the chat said, I consider the fifth market going out there and just hunting for comics, but you're hunting for them at one of the other four markets.
Exactly.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you have to go back to these four marketplaces, these four different style platforms. They have comic books at Buc-ee's yet? Jesse?
No. Yi was talking about my hat. I'm like, don't forget the shirt, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of crazy. It's like, here, this is no joke. If you are a Coffin Sworn member, I'm 2,800 miles away. I am in my studios, and guess what's still in my pocket? You never take this out of your pocket, right? You are sworn, and when you meet a member, it doesn't matter where you are, that member is going to show you that coin. So his brand is beyond the comic.
Right.
And you could be a DC fan, and I don't know how far you take that. Maybe you wear a shirt, right? Maybe you wear a hat, but I don't think it extends to that level that a sworn member of Coffin Comics or Brian Pulido is. And that takes a long time. And I will tell you, the first question I would ask him is, what is the percentage right now of actual Chaos Original fans versus your new Coffin fans? What is that percentage there?
I think that's the most important part, because I don't think a lot of people realize how big and how, I wouldn't say powerful, but how much they can move the needle Sworn Nation is. I mean, there's literally a 14,000 member private Facebook group where, I mean, they are constantly talking to each other. They all meet up. There were just a lot of them were out in Phoenix or Arizona this last weekend for an event with a Sworn Nation artist, David Harrington, I believe. Is that who it was? Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
David Harrington. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, David Harrigan. Sorry, and that to me is the part that's so crazy. And I was talking to Jesse about this today. I don't think there's any other comic book fan base like them. I don't think there's any other comic book creator that has a fan base like this, that come out and force, from around the world, not just the United States. I mean, when they put on Sworn Fest, it's people from Australia, Europe, Africa, South America. I mean, all over the world are coming out for that week. And, it's unreal. It really is unreal. Can you guys think of any other group that maybe even holds a candle?
Todd and Spawn fans, but they're not as organized because I would put Todd and the Spawn fan group just a hair above, but Todd hasn't
done all this.
He hasn't dedicated himself to feeding that fandom as regularly as Brian does. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah, to me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's memberships, a membership club. I would one of these days we got to get Brian on just to break down Sworn Nation, and how that all came to be and everything about it, because.
Well, and I've talked to lots of other creators, and I know we've had them on this show, Bill McClay and Dan Mendoza, and they're doing the Ill Fest coming up based on Brian's group. I've talked to another creator about doing it, and he's just not motivated to do it, which is, when I tell you who it is, you'll be shocked. I know, but a lot of the creators have looked at this and said, can I do something similar to this? And that's why Brian is the genius Brian is, because he has made people think. That would be even a different, because you think about it, second market is comic book conventions. They've created their own comic book convention. I still put that in the second market, but it is a dedicated comic book convention to just their fans.
Just their fans, yeah. I mean,
yeah. And Yi brings up Zenoscope, and I think creators, artists, writers work for Zenoscope, and I think writers and creators and artists that do something with Brian become part of that sworn family.
Yeah.
And they become part of that family and team.
That's definitely more of what it feels like. It feels like more of a family community.
And honestly, I think Zenoscope could have done this at some point in the past 10, 12 years ago when they were really coming up.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But they decentralized themselves too hard, too fast, and it all became about them rather than the group, the camaraderie.
Yeah. Is there a strong market for strong women out in your area, Emmett?
Always, yeah. Those books always sell. Believe it or not subscriptions. More of, people coming in. Do you have? It's sort of like the license buyer, right? We have the people that come in and they'll go, "Do you have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?" And they'll go to that and they'll buy 10 issues of it. They don't subscribe. They just come in and they're looking for that license. And Lady Death and a lot of the stuff from Coffin Comics has that feel to it, even though it doesn't have a television or cartoon currently, or the video game stuff has that same licensing stuff has that different feel to it. At least for my sales at my shop, they aren't that monthly subscriber. Show up, buy 10 issues.
What's interesting about that is, so this is to me what another part of the fifth market, and I think that this market becomes crazy big when they figure this out. I was listening to Mike Barron on the Mark Miller podcast this week, and at the very end, they're talking about like Comicsgate and
Badger.
Huh?
Was he talking about Badger?
He did talk about Badger, yeah, he did. But they were talking about the Comicsgate Kings group and how Mike has been welcomed into that Comicsgate Kings group as the only writer of the group. The rest are all artists. And they've really welcomed Mike into that group. And through that, it's helped Mike, really get back into his career. And Mark then asked him, he said, well, do the books that you guys crowdfund, do they end up in shops 2 years later? Do you figure out a way to get them to shops? And Mike said, most of the guys don't, but he does. He figures out a way to get his, books with Steve Rude to be in there. He figures out ways to get books into shops. But here's the game changer. He said on that show that the Comicsgate guys are trying to figure out a way to start some type of shop or distribution network to get those crowdfunded books to shops later on, do like a reprinting, kind of like what Mark Spears did with Monsters and Keen Spot, and Jay Stevens did with Dwellings, and where they start out as Kickstarters, but then are able to be republished a few years later or whatever, and have more life in the shops. And if these crowdfunding efforts can figure out a way to not only keep the crowdfunding going and get it to the buyer directly, but also get a way to, get it into shops more easily and get that more accessible, that fifth market becomes a monster.
Oh yeah,
I think they're different buyers. I've brought Kickstarter books in that had levels for retailers, and they just don't sell.
What about Monsters, Emmett?
Books?
Huh?
What about Monsters? What about Monsters, Emmett?
I didn't get Monsters sold when it hit Keen Spot. Yeah.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, so it was originally a Kickstarter, and you don't have to get those books into a shop right away. But if they're popular enough to do some type of second publishing and get into shops, they could be monsters. Which the biggest book in the world right now is that Keen Spot Monsters book.
I'll just back you up on that. I don't carry new books, but when I saw the popularity of the All In and the Absolute Batman, and Superman was coming out and Wonder Woman was coming out, I called up my buddy and said, yeah, give me 10 of this, 5 of this, 5 of this. I'll try it out. And I have sold out of Batman, the second print and the noir. I've sold, or number one. I've sold out of Superman number one. I've sold either half or almost all of my Batman number twos. And I'm charging $6 a piece under my business model.
Isn't it amazing how good stories and great art sell comic books?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, always do. Always. You know, what's funny is Brian's first 2 Kickstarters were at my store. Michael's first Kickstarter was at my store. And they realized that they really didn't have to launch at stores. And I think what they have to realize now is there has to be a connection back. And if Emmett says, well, it doesn't work, okay, well, we need to find out what makes it work. Yeah. Maybe it's not putting the word Kickstarter involved in it at all. Say, oh, this is a Kickstarter, but because that might be a negative to someone.
Well, I tell the story of, I want to say it was around 2010 or 11 when, I forget his name, God Hates Astronauts.
Oh, yeah.
That kid.
That was a great series. I love that.
Yeah, he had a 6-figure Kickstarter program, and he was out of Chicago. Ryan something, I forget his name. So we were putting on our convention. I said, let's invite this guy. I've never read any of his books. He's clearly got a fan following, so let's go ahead and bring him into our show. And so we brought him in 2010, and because of that, I ordered 10 copies of his trade paperback when it was solicited through Image. He already, in my opinion, already sold all of them to his fans. But I wanted to see if my customers, because I was a big, staunch line in the sand, you go to Kickstarter, you're not a friend of retailers. That's the way I looked at it in 2009, 2010, 2011.
Ryan Brown.
And I got those books in, and
Ryan Brown.
Yeah. So see, I remembered his name. I'm not that clueless. So I got those in. We sold 8 out of the 10 in the first month because people had heard about the Kickstarter. People had heard about him. People had heard how good it was. And the customers who aren't in that Kickstarter world at that time, who are brick and mortar comic fans, they said, okay, I will try this. See, I remember he was from Chicago. God, I'm not that old.
See, but very few do this kind of numbers on Kickstarter.
Right.
A lot of it's friends and family. You know, the kid gets out of college, art college, or a writer, and he puts together a comic, and you know, they're $5,000, $6,000, maybe 10. They don't get moved out. Here's my thing for. This is why I love the $1.25 books at the Dollar Tree. Getting a comic in anybody's hands, I don't care if it doesn't come through retail. Just make a comic book. Sooner or later, I have all the books. Yep. Sooner or later, they're going to come to my front door.
Yep.
When they're like, I don't have anything else to read. I need more.
Yep. Well,
I make comic book readers.
Right. I think what hurt Kickstarter, and I'm a prime example of this. I'd have to pull it up. But I think I've backed about 205 Kickstarters. But at that 205, you know, there's 80 I still have not gotten. And so that beginning, that first 3-4 years where people were just taking your money.
Oh, where that one jackass took the entire print run because he didn't like the fact that he had to ship out things.
Yeah.
And he burned them in his backyard and put it on Twitter.
Yeah. So that's they fixed that part, and so they've gravitated some people back, and I still do some, but I think it's become. If you do a Kickstarter now, no one says, "Oh my gosh, you're doing a Kickstarter." They just say, "Oh, cool, you're doing a Kickstarter," because it's become norm business, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's very interesting. I believe when the guy did, I forgot who did it. He was based out of Phoenix. Did the very first comic book Kickstarter, which was called "Songs of the Smiths" or something like that. Brian, if you can pull that out, he was the very first Kickstarter, and he did $15,000 in Comic Vine, Newsarama. Everybody had an article about this guy doing $15,000 on this new platform. And so that was back in the crazy years of Kickstarter. Songs inspired by the Smiths.
Oh,
I'm looking for it right now.
Okay. Yeah, so it's a different market now, and you could almost say some of these people, songs of the Smiths. There you go. Sean DeMumbrum did that, and it was crazy what people are going crazy over this book and this new platform. So I think it will continue to be a good part of the industry. I think it will be the good part of people becoming their own publishers, and them also holding the feet to their own, the fire to their own feet to get that product out. And I think as long as that they do that, I don't think we have any fear of losing crowdfunding at any time in the near future.
Yeah.
What
Well-
Brian's doing is something completely different. But as far as crowdfunding goes, trust me, this isn't.
Crowdfunding's been around forever,
Yeah.
before the internet.
yeah.
Yeah,
Panhandling.
yeah, there you go. Yeah,
One of the things
going
that I
to-
find,
Spare a dime.
yeah. I remember going to my first Amway meeting. I'm like, what
Yeah.
the heck is this going on?
Yeah, I figured out that Amway thing real quick. Like when I was 18 or 19, I'm like, wait a second.
What about
Yeah.
SMC? What about SMC? You guys ever see SMC? All entrepreneurs know all these little these
Yeah.
guys. Hey, where can I get stuff that I can sell? SMC was one that did. They didn't do like vitamins and toothpaste and all that. They did
Right.
Indian figures and
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff that you could is knickknacks kind of
Yep.
stuff.
Yeah.
yeah. So the thing that really excites me about this is you're starting to hear more and more about, companies embracing crowdfunding. You've got talk of, you've got Brian who's already starting his own crowdfunding platform. You've got talk of big companies, that are in the comic book world deciding to maybe start their own crowdfunding platform rather than go to Kickstarter like Dynamite or Skybound has.
Well, but
they're going to
we had it
start
right here on the show.
Skybound is going to start their own crowdfunding platform rather than use Kickstarter. Whatnot's going to start their own crowdfunding platform rather than use Kickstarter.
And Diamond reached out to crowdfunders to try to get them to come in and help them organize and ship their product. How did that turn out this week, the last month?
Yeah.
Last month, yeah. I still haven't gotten my
books
this week yet. I'm told I'm getting them tomorrow, but yeah,
Right.
it's been bad.
I think, Emmett, what me, you, Dennis understand about that is we're in front of the customer.
Yeah.
The shipper is not in front of the customer. The distributor is not in front of the customer. Your account rep is not in front of the customer telling them, no, I don't have your book.
Yeah.
I have told people. Go ahead.
What I told Diamond, I've called them every week, and I said, I could tell all my customers in one email that it won't be until Friday. They come in on their lunch hour. They come in directly after work. These people need a little notification. If you communicate with me, I can communicate with them. I don't have a problem if you have a problem, but I have a problem when you don't let me know you have a problem.
Right.
And you keep telling me that, next week we're on schedule for next week. No, you're not.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest problem. No communication. That's the biggest thing in business is
And when they
just
do communicate, you get that canned Chris Powell letter that just says, hey, we're doing our best.
Yeah, exactly. I always tell this when you tell a customer, no, this is what it sounds like. Well, I'm sorry, Diamond did not ship those comic books to me, so we don't know when they're then be in. We're hoping that it gets in this Friday or next week. This is what the customer hears. Blah, 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 blah. I didn't get my comic.
Right.
When am I getting my comic? They don't care who Diamond is. Diamond is immaterial to a customer.
Yep.
And so as comic book store owners or whatever you're doing, you have to be that front line and in the trenches with your customer more than the distributor, and you gotta hope it helps them, because if I get off work and I drive through traffic for 20 minutes to get to the store for my 5-minute visit and you don't have my product, that kind of made my day kind of crappy.
That's the
100%.
one thing. That's
100%.
one thing. So there was a comment from a retailer that was very well connected that Diamond commissioned a marketing survey back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Because I heard about this right when I opened my store. And it was something to the effect of 85% of the customers of a store, when that store closes, do not go anywhere else. They just disappear. So that's a 15% retention rate for the rest of the stores in that area. I always kept that in mind because I didn't want any store to go out. Everybody was like, man, I wish my competitor would go out of business. I'm like, you're only going to see a small bump. And I saw that little small bump every time, but it was never this groundswell.
Right.
And what they also have to understand is what GameStop understood back in the day. We have customers lined up every Thursday night for a game release at midnight. Back when DVDs were a thing, there were customers lined up on Monday night for a Tuesday release of a famous movie, Titanic or whatever, at Walmart or whatever. We had, up until I think the last couple of years, we had a customer base, and I don't disparagingly call them this, that were like Pavlovian dogs. They understood if they wanted the best comic books and they picked the best store, if they were there on Wednesday, they would get the comics that they wanted. We had this covenant between the retailer and the customer, and the retailer made it absolutely abundantly clear to Diamond, we don't care what your problem is, you better have those books to us on Wednesday morning. Oh, good. You finally listened to them and got us to them on Tuesday so that we could have them ready for Wednesday morning? Great. Okay, COVID happens. We understand. Just make sure when comics get made again, we get them on that Tuesday again. And then this stuff happens. And the customer, the retailer gets screwed. The customer gets screwed. Yep. How many, and I don't think there's any marketing whatsoever that says, how many weeks in a row does a customer show up for their books and they don't get it before they say, piss off?
Yep.
I think about a month.
Yeah, exactly. You keep in mind, I've bought 16 stores, and I learned from the first store, and I bought it because they had 200 box holders. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't care about his inventory. I want those 200 box holders. Yep. We ended up getting 200 boxers. Now, keep in mind, the store I bought out, I actually hired the owner to be my manager. So I'm thinking, I'm getting all 200 of these people because I'm bringing the owner over. Right. You know how many box holders we got? 25. Because we weren't the store they had been buying from the last 15 to 20 years.
And we used to have a store. So before I became a retailer and reseller, we had a store called Barron's. They had 4 locations in Detroit. I won't get into the nitty gritty. If you're from Detroit and you know what I'm talking about, you'll know what I'm talking about. A divorce lawyer came in one morning on Tuesday or Wednesday and padlocked all 4 of the stores as part of the divorce filing.
You said Atomic Comics? Who were you talking about?
No. I'm talking about Barron's Comics in the Detroit area. So that Wednesday morning, the 2 closest stores did one of 2 things. The one store came over, Stadium Card and Comics, and they handed out coupons that said, or flyers that said 20% off your comics, come over to our store and sign up for a poll. My buddy, Rich Nelson, who I just had dinner with tonight, he went to the lawyer and said, I'll buy this location. They were up and running a week later. They made the deal. They bought the store a week later, and they had comics from their store they brought over to populate.
Yeah, sure.
His numbers, and they knew how many boxes. because the store was frozen in time. They had 500 box holders. I'm making these numbers up, but I know the general. They had 500 box holders. 150 of those box holders, because that store was out there passing out flyers, went over to Stadium. Okay? Out of the 350 that were left, 100 of those guys decided, this is the perfect time. I'm done. They only got 250 of the box holders from that 500. In a week, they lost that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's amazing. There is a customers feel if you buy out someone's store, you're the bad guy.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Yep.
But there's one of the things Dennis just said was also is also a real thing. It's a perfect time to stop. That I really see that a lot they're all looking for when is the stopping point. That there's going to be a stopping point when they're going to stop collecting. When is it?
Yep.
And events do make that happen. I went from 50. I'm in a really small market. I went from 50 box holders after COVID to 3.
Wow.
And we are back up to 40 because it's to find 40 in my small market, to find another 40 different people to come and start buying comics has been a struggle. But so box holders are not my business model anymore. I take care of them. I do everything for them. But
and as much as we all love box holders, we all have hundreds of horror stories about box holders stiffing us, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, thousands. What I learned real fast when we hit about 400 box holders. Now, keep in mind, like Emmett, I'm the opposite. I have 10 stores around me at the time, including Atomic Comics down the street, store 5 minutes this way, 5 minutes that way. So that's traditional numbers for Phoenix. But what started to happen is we started to see this big increase in box holders. I'm like, where are all these box holders coming from? And we get into the second week, and I'd say, hey, where's this new Jeff guy? Oh, he hasn't come in yet. And then what we realized, these were customers coming in from other stores that never picked up their boxes.
The biggest curse you can ever put on your competitor is canceling somebody's box and letting them go over to your competitor.
Yeah. It is crazy. It is crazy. And listen, we love our customers. We're not saying there's a negative thing, but it's just that it's like the good old guy that walks in to pick up his box of 25 books, right? And hey, I'm going to go look. Oh, 25 books. I'm going to go look around the store. Go ahead, look around the store. So about 10 minutes goes by. You answer the phone, all that. He comes, okay, I'm ready to check out. Oh, there's only 10 books here. Oh, yeah, these are the ones I want. Well, where are the other 15 books? Oh, I just put, because he's too embarrassed, right? Yeah. So that has happened so many
times. The one that pissed me off the most, and this guy was a great customer. And it was, like I said, I don't want to be mean, but he came in and he was like a 20 book a week customer. 40 books. We haven't seen him in 2 weeks. We held all of his books, and he came in and he goes, oh, you know what? I need this one, and this one. I'm like, are you canceling the rest of it? He goes, no, I was up north for 2 weeks on vacation and I couldn't be without my books. So I bought them at a store up there.
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I can't mention the furniture company, but it's the largest in the world. So let's put it that way. He was my box order. So he bought every single book that came out, every trade paperback book that ever came out. Came in once a month. His bill every month was $2,500 to $4,000, right? But we had to eat those books for 4 weeks, but he'd come in. Then what would happen, he would take vacation for 2 weeks, read all the comics, and then just give me back all the comics he had bought. Right? Well, week 5 comes out. Week 6 comes out. Don't hear from the guy. So we end up eating like $6,000. And he is sold his part to the furniture company and forgot about his book. So it's just a tough business. And I know there's people out there that are very successful at it, but that number is so small.
And getting smaller. Brian, I sent you a picture.
Well, I think you're wrong. I think the comic book stores are growing. I think we're adding comic stores all the time.
Where they can get into that.
Attrition, but Emmett, the attrition happens as every store dies off. Like I said, I don't know what that number is now, but in 2000 it was 15%. The smaller the store number gets, everybody picks up those extra 15%, so it shows growth at one level, but it's a loss in general. I just wanted to share this image with everybody. So this is what I like to call an angel customer. He came in and he got such a nostalgia hard on. He went through my entire wall of $5 and $2 books and just started picking up stacks of things that he wanted to read. Wonder Woman, G.I. Joe, Spider-Man, Batman. $300 and I think $25 worth of just books on just an average Saturday.
The only thing I want to ask you is how many tape dispensers do you need on one table?
Hey, you know how many? I rebag and board every comic book.
What are you, ambidextrous? So you got one on the right,
no,
one on
we'll
the
have
left?
somebody
How
over there
fast
bagging.
do you have to be? No, congratulations. Good set.
But it was just, there's a business model out there for every customer base. If you start thinking that there's just the one customer base and that's getting smaller, which it is, but we're expanding. Emmett talks about all of the success he has with these other, fringe peripheral markets. And that's an old dog learning new tricks. You know what I'm saying? And
100%.
There's so many in this industry that cannot break their habit of just giving all their money to Diamond and hoping they have a box on Tuesday.
Yeah, 100%.
And Emmett, the last 2 or 3 weeks or a month, how much, when the customer has that, how much more are you making from the other genres as you start to see that Diamond money disappearing or in the Luna money?
I tell you, the other items have really been insane recently, but so has comics. Right. So I've added any comic that has is a dead media, like all the Metallica comics and all that stuff, that goes all in with the records and the DVDs, and the same things with anything that's video game. They're over by the video games. Any of the movie tie-ins or television tie-ins, they're by the DVDs. And then it's just, I'm trying to upsell all the time. You're trying to you want to buy a DVD? There's a comic for that. Or, hey, we got a lanyard or a pin or, a pop.
Sure.
Something that goes with the thing you love. We've got something else.
Yeah, accessorizing a comic book. That's how I actually started my store, was accessorizing. So when you bought in a Harley Quinn, or you bought a Harley Quinn book, if it was a lady, you had that purse there. You had the socks. You had the keychain. You had the lanyard. You to sell. It's kind of like the person. I walked into a store one day and the guy was walking out with 3 bags, and you see that guy I spent $450. I'm like, cool, what did he get? Oh, he picked up his full box. Okay, but what did he buy? Well, he bought his comics. I'm like, no.
He's already committed to that.
He's already committed to that. So you sold him nothing. You have to sell one more item with every single thing, even if it's a drink.
Yep.
You gotta add on because that's what does get you to the dance.
So, Brian, I don't know if we're ready to segue into the second topic, but once again, back to this. There are so many middlemen into this industry, and they're failing us one by one. And Emmett, I know you have one of your favorite middlemen that you despise in our industry, and that's going to be our second topic today.
Oh.
Yeah. Before you go to that, folks, I just want to say one thing that Brian said. all these publishers do R&D, and they're. Can you take that off the screen? Okay. All these publishers are doing R&D on how their customers are going to react if they go to do a Kickstarter. No one is just saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm a publisher, I'm going to do a Kickstarter." They have to do some research and development and figure out, will their customer follow them and accept that, or does the customer feel they've left them behind?
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. Beckett, now part of umbrella company Collectivist Holdings, which I've seen a lot of people tripping out about. Obviously, Beckett is the owner of CBCS. They are a large grading company that grades sports cards, TCG, anime or manga books now, Pokemon, video games. They're a huge grading company, but now it's saying that a long-running brand is now under a group known as Collectivist Holdings, an umbrella company that includes Beckett Media and Collectibles, Southern Hobby Distribution, and TCG card supply maker Dragon Shield. Excuse me. So I see a lot of people thinking that this new that there's been a buyout or some new company came in and bought Beckett, and that is, from what I'm understanding, has nothing to do with it. That this is just a reorg. The same people that own them are still the same people that own them, but now they're under a new umbrella corporation rather than just owning these separate groups. Does that sound right?
Which is
That sounds
interesting.
right.
Yeah. However, I want to know how Southern Hobby has always existed under this umbrella without any of us knowing that there was a major distributor of sealed product being co-owned or co-managed, or however this is mingled,
By a grading
with
company.
one of the biggest grading companies.
Yep.
That to me is really crazy. I understand how Southern Hobby probably bought Dragon Shield at some point. I understand where Dragon Shield and Southern Hobby would be intermingled. But the fact that Southern Hobby has any tentacles whatsoever with the number one, at one point, the number one grading company for trading cards is kind of very interesting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well-
Southern Hobby has the worst, actually, out of the New York, right? So I can only speak for New York, the worst customer service. And if you're a small shop, you're fucked.
Yeah. Good luck. Yep.
Yep.
That's what a lot of those distribution
Well,
companies.
Southern Hobby was the
Yep. Allocation, they call it allocation. Oh, the company
Yeah.
is allocated.
Yeah, those card distribution companies are horrible. If
Yep.
you're not buying, thousands of cases, you're getting allocated. And that's wrong because, you're making a lot of money off of one company
but
that's
it's the same
buying
as-
you buying all these cards from you, but you're not giving the cards to all the other small ones that's going to help grow the entire hobby.
But Emmett,
Entire
how,
hobby, entire business.
Yes.
Emmett,
With
how,
them, I left Southern Hobbies.
how far away from Midtown are you, Emmett?
Well, it's only 60 miles, but you can't get there from here, kind of shit.
Right. But you're roughly an hour as the crow flies away from Midtown Comics.
Yeah.
Does anybody think, and we had a comment in the chat last week that corrected it, does anybody think Midtown Comics is being suffered the same anguish that Emmett is being suffered by roughly the same area of distribution as far as comics go?
No, but I would stress, I think allocation is an excuse more than anything else.
Yeah.
I think, hey, you're only getting 12 boxes. Well, why am I ordered 24? Well, because of allocation.
Right.
No, it's not because of allocation. It's an excuse. That's what I mean. I listen, I'm a big account for Southern Hobby, so I'm on the different end here. But at the end of the day, You know, I don't accept when someone tells me something's allocated. I don't care. I ordered 24. I want 24. You send me 12 doesn't help me. That means I'm going to tell half my customers that then be happy, and the other half they're not. Find me those other 12 things, and they always find them right at the end of it. Well, this person didn't. This is what you get. This company went out of business, or this customer didn't pay. No, I pitched a bitch, and I called you out on it, and that's why I got my 24 at the end. But don't use the word allocation with me.
I did that to BCW, and now they won't sell me anything anymore.
Well, what's interesting about this whole thing is that, you know, the recent owner of Beckett was sentenced to 7 years for insurance fraud. So maybe this was also a little bit of PR for them to get away from Greg Lindbergh and his insurance fraud.
I'll add to their PR nightmare. And I watched Swaggle House's video today, and Swaggle House made a very funny joke. You know, I know there's a lot of CBCS supporters, all three of you out there. Swaggle House will be very happy to know it's down to 2, because I have decided, I think it was Monday or Saturday, I got my last submission that I sent in. If you remember, Brian had Red Hood open up my submission, and they were all bangers. I mean, just bangers. Red Hood went through. I don't know if Red Hood's in the chat. Shout out if you are, Red Hood. I've seen the books. The books are perfect. I only do 9/8 pre-screen. Especially if I send it to my presser, and the presser's as good as Red Hood. He inspected and reviewed every one of these books. I had more non-9/8s than I've ever had in my life from CBCS. Like, I insulted somebody's mother. That's how bad. I got 4 good ones out of 32. That means 4 9/8s and 28. And every one of these was pressed by Red Hood. And if anybody thinks Red Hood sucks at pressing, you're wrong. I had books that were in CBCS cases that got cracked out and came back 2 grades lower than what they originally graded it as. I don't know what's going on over there, but it was enough for me to just say, I'm done. You know, the box arrives tomorrow with these last books in it that were all dude, some of these grades are coming back 7s and 8s that were 8s and 9 minimums. It is horrendous. I have zero faith in CBCS anymore. I have zero faith in Beckett grading anymore.
That's a big change, Dennis, which is absolutely crazy. And if you guys don't know, Dennis has been, you know, on the forefront of you know, calling CBCS the better grader for years. And here's a perfect example of, you know, Dennis isn't just a homer. He's doing it because, you know, it helps his business. And when it's not helping his business anymore, and it looks like it's something stinks, you know, something's smelling weird here. You bet you're out. Which I respect that. So
how do you reinvent yourself leaving CBCS into, I'm guessing, CGC or whoever?
No, I will never touch CGC. Let me just say that again. So I don't care who owns them. They screwed me once. They lied. Every scandal after this has proven they are untrustworthy with our industry's commodity. They are a middleman that I wrote them out of my product mix 13 years ago or 12 years ago. So I'll never touch CGC. I didn't grade a single book from 2013 till whenever CBCS got started. I've used CBCS exclusively during this entire time as the only place for graded books that I'll trust my product with. To answer the chat, I will try PSA. I am not optimistic because I have a problem with the way PSA grades cards. I don't believe that everyone is graded fairly. I don't believe that it's a science. I think it's more of an old boys club that I'm not a member of. That's fine. I will try PSA.
Bump?
What?
The heritage bump?
Well, yeah, exactly. Much like the CGC 9.9s that go to Heritage and all of the different auction houses. What's the one that has Mr. Pink? Comic Link?
No, Metropolis. Yeah, Comic Link. Yeah.
Comic Link. I don't trust CGC. I've seen the flaws. I don't believe in any of their grading at all. I've seen some of the same things at PSA, and I've seen me get the flip side inverse of that, where, it's like, okay, who am I not blowing to get, and I watched Neo Cards and Comics. I've watched him, and he got back a submission of total bangers that he thought were all 9s and 10s, and he got more 8s than he could care to count.
Yeah.
So
SGC is just as hard, if not harder. But if you want the real deal, you should get Tag. Everybody should be moving to Tag. It's the first AI. They only do modern cards right now, but it's completely done by a computer. It doesn't have to worry about his wife yelling at him or losing sleep or being hungover.
Here's the thing, though. But Emmett, I'm kind of coming around to you. I'm still going to try PSA just to say I tried them. I'll definitely give them a 100-book submission when they decide that they're going to launch this thing, because I do want to see what they do with comic books. And if it's what I think and the particular comics that I want to grade through PSA, I'm not going to grade Golden Age or any of that through them. But I honestly, Jesse, the main place I'm going to sell my books is just sell them raw on platforms like the Fourth Market.
So what is the percentage?
See the way I hit the Fourth Market in there?
Yeah. Before you said you're not going to do this, what was the percentage of your sales that were graded books?
That's difficult to come up with that number.
More than 20% or less than 20%?
I would say probably 20%.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. I don't know the volume that I do at the store, so I can't offset that, but at least 20% of my online sale of comic books through eBay is absolutely graded comics.
And I have 0%. And I actually leave so much money on the table, and as a real businessman, it really hurts me to do.
It's difficult.
But it's just fake. It's so fake. It aggravates me to no end. It is a nothing burger. My recent video that's going up in 2 weeks is about their guarantee, and if you want to get your book graded, why don't you read their guarantee first? Because they guarantee you nothing. That it's authentic, maybe, unless they put it on the label, it's not.
Right. So do you, Emmett, as a store owner, that what you just said, is it because of the time it takes to get your book back as well? Does that come into play? Is the $100 better today than the $160 I'll get later?
It's a little bit of that, but more one, ethics, and two, risk.
I don't
because
give.
If you get a book back in 8, you're going to sell it for the same you would have sold it raw.
Yeah.
And so you've eaten all that extra money, so your profit margins dive.
It comes down to one of the realities that I've talked about on this show, which is I've gotten old enough and I've gotten comfortable enough in the amount of money that I make to be able to not spend money with people I don't support and I don't think are doing their job. So I just won't spend that money. And if PSA does the job that I think they could do, then there's another avenue. But if I get back those 100 books, those first 100 books I send back, and it looks like the same shit that I get back from the card side of that, I'm done with PSA and I'm selling raw all day.
Okay. Yeah, I think this umbrella idea obviously is about marketing, promotions.
Could it be about going IPO? They're reorganizing and going under one umbrella and maybe IPO the business to bring in somebody like BlackRock and Blackstone and
But see, that's
Vanguard.
and I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you, Emmett. This is part of that money changers in our temple that I've been also talking about for several years, which is the outside money sees all of this stuff. You see BlackRock buying into CGC, and you see PSA doing their thing and about to move on that. And I forget who owns PSA, but it's somebody big. And then now this is somebody else who's like, all right, you need a management structure in place, and then we'll look at you. But we're not looking at you until somebody who speaks our language is above you, and they say, this is what this is to us.
Right. Yep.
And if I had to guess, and I heard a lot of people talking, and one of the things that really interested me, especially the second I heard Southern Hobby is involved. Brian, who do you think I'm thinking of?
Well, I mean, I don't know. You tell me.
I think Fanatics is looking at these guys. Because Fanatics is screwing things up royally. But this gives them one of the biggest card distributors to be the exclusive distributor of their product. This gets them a grading company so they can take all of their special cards and pre-slab them all and sell those as a commodity on the Fanatics website. I think
we're making all of our favorite stuff.
Well, here's something very interesting about Fanatics recently. They're taking a big hit because for the first time in the last, I don't know, 5 years or more,
Chrome didn't sell out.
They put out a product, 2024 Bowman Baseball Draft, and it did not sell out, and it's not selling. They have it on their webpage for $500 something a box. You can buy hundreds of them. It's the first time this has happened in years, and it's a glaring statement from the fans who collect cards that they're not going to pay this type of money for a losing bet. If you buy wax right now, here's the problems with buying wax, in my opinion. One, there's so many people out there that are searching it, so you can't trust it. And with these CT scans and all that type of stuff, and you just can't trust it for the most part because you don't know where it came from before it got to your trusted person. Two, you have groups like Southern Hobby and CGS or whoever that are allocating to death the people that don't buy a ton of it. And three, most importantly, buyers are realizing that they're going to spend $500 to $700 a box and maybe get a couple $100 worth of value.
The EV is terrible.
Yes.
And you have to play every year to really score because there's years that are going to be doinks, no good rookies, and the products were subpar. So if you're not in it for a long term, and then you might as well have just bought something you could have sold.
Have you guys seen in your feeds the Topps holiday boxes, and people are opening up packs of just one character or one player?
No.
There's entire threads on like, hey, look how many of these I got out of 2 blasters, and it's like 20 of the same player.
Yeah.
So the allocations are effed.
See, so this is an example of the hobby eating itself, and they got too greedy through COVID. It just got too crazy, and if the comic industry isn't careful, they're next, and they might already be next, and it's hard to stop. So, we got to keep our eye on it.
The grading companies have a big problem because you're going to reach saturation at some point.
Yep.
And we've got to be getting close now for all the big books. And then when you're not doing big books, people are, there's not a new grade. I think that's why they moved to the 9, 9, 10, So people would send back their 998s because they're running out of stuff to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You got to keep in mind when did the first graded book happen? 99, what, 2000?
2000, somewhere,
Yeah.
I don't know
So,
exactly, but that's somewhere in there.
Before 1999, where were we spending all that money that we were spending on grading now?
More books.
We're just buying more books,
Yeah.
right?
Inventory.
And so, it's crazy. You got to keep in mind, most people before maybe 2002, 2003, most collections I bought that was pre-2000 weren't bag and boarded. Why?
Nope.
Because if they bought bag and boards, that meant less comics.
Yep.
So,
or they double bagged and boarded them one way.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, or triple bag or whatever.
For me, when I talk about competition, I like comic book competition in my area. CGC is my real competition. Those are dollars they're not being spent on comics so people are like, a lot of people like to fill their runs. So if they started buying over there and they either went out of business or they didn't have the back issues, they come to my shop and they get the back issues. We share a lot of customers through the internet, through everything, but we're giving our money away to CGC.
Yep.
And if you're not collecting on it, like if I grade a book and it's $1,000 book, I put it on my wall in Port Jervis, New York, with 8,500 people around my store. That's going to sit there 3 to 5 years. So now I have to, not only do I have to grade it, but then I have to pay eBay or somebody else to help me sell it so I can get to a bigger, larger market. So I'm adding all this risk. Did I really, after all the time and effort I put in, did I make any more money? Or do I get to say, oh, I sold a $10,000 book? Well, I put $5,000 into getting it done. Oh, and I bought it for $3,000, so I made $2,000. The grading company and everybody else made the money.
Well, and that's the money changers. That's the middlemen. They see the
100%.
money going on our industry, and they're like, I want a piece of that. You know what I'm saying? And they figure out how to worm their way into the industry, whether it's grading, whether it's all of these artists are exclusively signed with us, and we have an entire corner at this comic book convention, and they're all charging $20 a piece, plus they all have a variant, and we're selling the variant for $40, autographed for $60, and we'll witness it for CGC for an extra $10. And you're like, I just wanted to meet my favorite artist and see him at a comic book convention. Not all of this 3-ring circus that you built around it,
Well,
and as variants became the thing, variants were for comic stores. Variants were for a convention. You did it as a special event to draw people into your store. At the point at which there were just variant dealers, that lessened that as well. They weren't comic book retailers. They were just people who dealt just in variants.
Yeah.
And guess what? We're watching it all crumble in real time.
Sure. And I think it started when DC and Marvel would do a variant, and the variant was the same cover, just black and white.
Or the same cover, just with a trade dress or not.
Yeah. Exactly. And that really sparked that revolution of, people will spend more for the same thing if we just change it a little. And so that's been the crazy part of our ebb and flow in the business. I just did my market report for Overstreet. I'm predicting 2025 is one of our greatest years in our history. Why? Because all the platforms we can buy on, comic book stores that are left are the ones that are the good, hard-working stores. They can take anything. Creators
Bookstores are on their way back.
Right. Bookstores are on the way back. Socially, what we are seeing in the social market is even bigger, which we'll get to that later.
Well, hold on. Pull up that other story that we were going to talk about tonight. NEC.
Well, what?
You guys shared the thing in the chat earlier. I thought we were going to talk about.
Oh, I just showed that just as a cool thing.
But to me, that's important, Jesse.
Yeah.
Do you want to read it, Brian?
So New England Comics, one of the biggest, store chains for the longest time.
The biggest.
You think, the Tick. Every time I think of NEC, I think of the Tick. But this comes from the owner of New England Comics. I apologize.
Yeah, I know. It's only 7 o'clock.
I know.
Nap time, Brian. Come on.
Yeah. Hello, my name is George Suarez, and I'm the owner of New England's Comics. I started NEC with my business partner, Henry Scagnoli, opening our first store in Quincy on June 3rd, 83. I remember some observers predicted a comic store would never succeed in the South Shore, but we did enough business that first day to cover the entire month's rent. That was such a relief. The single day's success was followed by 41 years of growth as NEC, supported by an excellent staff and many devoted customers, expanded to as many as 10 stores at its peak. We opened Brockton and Alliston in 1984 and then about a store every year until 1993. We also built and ran a large mail order division for a long time. Most stores have succeeded, some have not. This is why we have closed some stores over the years. And now, after 41 years, it's become time for me to retire. This is why I have recently sold 2 stores, Norwood and Malden, to capable, experienced employees. The goal is to see those stores continue to provide an excellent service to their customers, even when I am no longer, quote, in charge, end quote. Customers have inquired sometimes anxiously what will happen to the remaining stores. Well, Quincy and Brockton, our first 2 stores, have always been the crown jewels of NEC. And I assure you that they will continue to be for as long as comic books remain a source of entertainment. My plans are to transfer the rest of NEC to my longtime senior managers, Tom Yee and Ralph Blazer. They will continue to operate as NEC into the future, and who knows, they may decide to open additional stores on their own down the road. In closing, I want to thank the thousands of people who have shopped NEC stores in the 4 decades we've been in business. I worked the Quincy front counter myself way back on June 3rd, 83. I also worked a lot of days in every store in the early years of NEC. I have enjoyed meeting and discussing our mutual hobby with many customers over the years. Some were kids when they shopped in Quincy in the 80s, and occasionally I run into them as adults with great careers and families, and we talk nostalgically about the quote-unquote old days and how fast time flies. Warning to young folks, time really does pass faster when you get older. I will forever be grateful for your support over the years. It has allowed me to have a lifelong career that I enjoyed. As the saying goes, it isn't really work if you enjoy what you do. I always say that I wasn't cut out for a job in a big corporation because I never could stand having a boss. I had no boss at NEC except for the customers, and they've always been the best bosses I could hope for. Rest assured that NEC will continue under new ownership, providing the top-notch service and selection and friendly atmosphere that you've grown to expect from us. I wish you all happy holidays and great success in all you do in the coming years. Thank you for your years of support. George Suarez, CEO, New England Comics, Inc.
Yeah, when I saw this, I was amazed because, like I said, over the last 5 years, I've been to over 400 stores just because I've had to travel a lot. And I broke it down to 2 stores. There's the welcome store where, hey, how you doing? And then you got the store that is a, who are you when you walk in? And, and those are the 2 type of stores you have, right? And this is a store that I have known, I'm going on my 43rd year next year, that I have known for 41 years. And I've never been to a store, but I feel this is a welcome store. It's just a good traditional comic book store giving to its community.
Yep. The best stores and the stores that last are the stores that have that type of atmosphere where the customer is the boss, where you do whatever you can to make the customer happy. You do whatever you can to, keep that customer coming back. Those are the stores that last and that, prosper. The stores that say, crazy things like flippers are ruining the hobby, or that care what you do with the book you buy from them after you buy it, or that don't remember your name, or that, you know, don't remember your box number if you have a box number. Those little things cause you to search for other stores.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny that this also just happens to have happened today when I had a 2-hour meeting with my business partner and my lawyer, and we drafted up the buyout for him, and he's retiring at the end of this year. So, you know, I'm buying out the remainder of the company. You know, so it's all about, you know, secession and,
Yep.
you know, moving on when you're done with this hobby. And if you don't love it anymore, move on.
What's that saying? None of us get out of here alive.
Yeah.
Right. So selling a comic book shop is really, really hard because, you know, it's a hard business and you gain so much inventory
Yeah.
that people can't afford to buy you. If we could move our books in volume, I would be a very, very rich man, but we don't. Like, I always add more books than I ever sell. And, you know, we've heard Dennis talk about his movie house that's filled with books, and Jesse James has a huge warehouse.
Yeah.
It's just, you always have. So when you go to sell, if you want to retire and get out of this business, what are you going to sell it for? 10%? So if you have $3 million in $3 million in comics, that's still $300,000 for a business that is that hard and has to have that much knowledge that you really have to sit in a chair to get.
It's not a turnkey business by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
And I do not envy all of those people on the Facebook groups complaining about their order not being there. You know, I know that it's an entire day to put your initial order in. It's several hours once a week to do your FOC. It's another several hours to process those books and figure out what's too damaged to sell and what box holders need to have which books. You know, all the systems that we put in place, and then to do it all over again when the reorder comes in on Friday of the stuff that you were shorted and damaged on Tuesday.
And then they split all up now. So now you can't even have one place where the program spits you out a pick list for your customers. So now your like, this book is there and that from that company. And
God. And I left before the 3 distributors.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
We're in a depreciation business, and our when we do a buy, you talk about when you buy a car, how it depreciates, right? When you're in the comic book business, you better understand depreciation is the second you buy those 5,000 books, 4,500 books just depreciated.
Yep.
And so you got to learn how to make those depreciations worth something. And if they're sitting there, and I know Dennis likes to hold on to books, but when product is sitting there, that means you're not selling that product. And for some companies, that's important.
But the reason you say that is exactly the reason why I hold on to it. Because if I put $2 into a book, you know, a wholesale $2 book that's a $3.99 cover price, and I sell 20 out of the 25, and I still got those last 5, I'm not going to depreciate my customers' $4 purchase by dumping those last 5 into a $1 box or flipping them to a dealer for 10 cents a book because it's in a long box and long boxes only sell for, you know, 75 or whatever.
Yeah, but what I'm for, you might be misunderstanding what I'm saying, but go ahead, Emmett. Go ahead.
No, and I to me, I feel that there's an appreciation if you wait until all of those books are bled through the system and it starts trickling down like a funnel. If you know, and I show you guys, and you know what, I'll do it again, Brian. For January, I will try to put together my Amazon bestsellers list for our show. The money I make on Amazon is less, but the amount I get for the books is insane.
But let me ask you something, Dennis. Does that include all books? or is it just keys?
No, all books.
Like
today,
even Drek.
Yeah, Amazon's ridiculous.
So
Amazon's
today,
really crazy.
we had to hunt down a book because Amazon changed the listing and Amazon changed the picture, and we had to hunt it down and blah blah blah. But it was Storm Shadow Snake Eyes number 13 foil cover A and cover B, and I have 30 copies of this book. But we sold one for $29.99. And I looked on eBay and there's none. And they're selling for 25 to 30 when they go on eBay. And I've got 30 copies of this sitting
But that's
in a
not a
box.
Drek book. That's not a Drek book. When I talk about like for instance, you know, I just got this collection in that I'm the guy consigned with me, and it is just runs and runs and runs of, you know, modern stuff. And every once in a while you'll find keys, but you have to for the most part, I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna have to sell this in runs, and I'm not gonna be able to sell most of these books for even what they cost out the gate. So there's certain books that I feel like, and that's why I'm asking, just don't sell. So even if you do have a huge warehouse of books, isn't a vast majority of that not going to sell anywhere for the most part?
Yeah, and what I was talking about, if when Dennis is doing his deal with his partner, and you look at the value of the comic books he has in back, it's a depreciation value. It's not an appreciation value. That's what I'm trying to talk about. Dennis is right on the appreciation part of it. I will tell you this. Coming from a guy who's doing his 1,782nd show, after the show, check me out on eBay. This is my #1 selling book for the month. Ninja Chromiums. These sell for anywhere from $15 to $20 a pop at auction. You know how much I sell these for? Well, shouldn't tell you how much I sell them for in the store, but these traditionally, they're in dollar bins, right? So that's the difference. So if you have these books and you're saying, well, I'm not going to get, well, sometimes it's about the experience, which Emmett brought up. It's all about the experience and what you bring to the dance. It's about the story on why you're selling it. Why should you buy this set, right? And so I think every book has a value depending on who is selling it. That's the thing.
But here's the thing. It's also about convenience. And I'll explain one of the things that I love about Amazon versus eBay selling. eBay, it's about recycling every 30 days or whatever the system is. I really don't pay attention to that. That's the warehouse. But if I put Spawn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on eBay, I'm making 10 separate listings, and those separate listings are going to cycle through every 30 days and pop back in, and you're competing with hundreds of other sellers who are selling a run of 1 through 10, etc. But on Amazon, you put that 1 through 10 on Amazon, and you just sit it in a box. And when somebody doesn't want to go through the hundreds of listings on eBay, and I call it the gold card customer. When that gold card customer is sitting in front of his Amazon computer and he's ordering his coffee and he's ordering his kid's cereal, and he's like, oh man, I never picked up that 4th issue of Spawn when I just pulled my box out of my old comics from 30 years ago. You know what? Oh, Wonder World Comics with a 99.5% positive with 10,000 or 20,000 feedback. They've got it for $14.99. Add to cart. I just think it's a different customer.
Yeah. Oh, by far it's a different customer.
Yeah. But what's the fee you pay on that? The fee, the Amazon fee you pay.
Yeah, 20%.
Woo. Yeah.
But you better mail it. You better mail it that day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But that's why we have
the reason I'm not on Amazon is because I don't have a shipping department.
Right.
You have to have a shipping department if you're doing Amazon, or you're doing nothing else. I wouldn't be able to speak to a customer or
right. Let's answer the super chat
Yeah,
you want to put that super chat up?
It's up there. To LCS is in the chat. Do you make more money on new books or back issues? That's from our boy Alex with a $10 super chat.
Yep. So my answer to that is you have two different categories there. You have the have to sell category, which is new issues, because if you don't sell, you can't afford your books next week. And then you have the other category is do you want to sell? And if you want to sell something, that means your profits are then be bigger, right? You're not chasing. If I sell that Amazing Spider-Man 300, I'm making money on that Amazing Spider-Man 300. I'm not waiting for another one to come in. I'm just selling it and I'm making money. Back issues has been the staple of the comic book industry
forever.
Yep. And if anybody out there says any difference, I need to see their books, or they only sell new issues.
Or there might have been in that exclusive, when the exclusives were running really hot.
Right.
You could make a lot of money in the exclusive market. But as it dies, the profit margins. So DC dropped me because they were putting out bad books. So my subscribers weren't buying it. I'm not warehousing their books. So because I didn't make my money for the year, they dropped me down to 35%.
Wow. Holy cow.
So the shipping is not expensive from them, but I'm making, like, after I put the book up and get ready to sell, what am I making? Like 5-8%, something like that. After
I just pulled up, and unfortunately I can't share this with you guys because it has personal customer data in it, but I'm just going to throw out a couple of comic books and tell you these are sales in the last week on Amazon. Before Watchmen, Dr. Manhattan, Paul Pope variant, $14.99. The Max, number 5, $15.13. Mark Hazard, Merc, number 11 and 10.
New Universe.
$7.99 each.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, these are insane. Jim Henson's Power of Dark Crystal, Volume 1, $16. Batman the Cult, number 1, Bernie Wrightson cover, $18. Superman Batman 13, $7.99. Watchmen number 9, $75.
Yeah, that's about right for Watchmen number 9.
Dexter number 1, first printing, $70. Venom number 1, Toxic Kisses, $7.95.
Yeah, but Dennis, I think the question is very simple. I'm not saying to say this, and I could put up my numbers right now. I sell about 2,500 books a week on eBay. So what you have to figure out is, can you do both? Can you sell books in the expensive world, the mid world, and the small world?
Yeah.
And so what Dennis is saying is, look at what these are selling for, but you also want to say, look at everything I sold. So there's two things to that.
Yeah. Real quick, I want to thank Usagi Girl Comics for the $9.99 super chat. She says, happy holidays. Thank you for some pretty terrific content this year. And I want to say thank you to Usagi Girl for not only supporting us over here at the channel, but she has been a big time buyer of my Whatnot sales. And I can't thank her enough for that. So again, thank you, Usagi Girl.
Yeah.
So along with what you're saying, Jesse, is right now, I have 15 years experience selling on Amazon. It generates a certain amount of money. And it's right. I have to have a full-time warehouse to get those orders out on time, or Amazon will start spanking me. On top of that, I have my graded books that I sell on eBay, record sales with CBCS books that other people say can't be sold, especially in a CBCS case. That's fine. We are now, over the next year, transitioning the Amazon inventory into eBay. So if we have 20 of a book sitting in an Amazon box waiting to sell, I'm going to move 10 of those over to eBay and start moving those over there. And then I have my comic shop, the First Market, where I have $325 worth of books randomly selling to a customer who wants to relive their nostalgia. And it's all, and literally, and I'm not insulting to this, it's all dollar box stuff that you could find at some dollar box, but I treat it differently. I treat it as a commodity. I treat it as something that I want the customers to look through and enjoy in a different way than they get the experience of going to Emmett's store.
I got a hot take here. Dennis, you talked about last week about, how one of your things is dead media, and how, you had these girls come in asking about digital cameras that you thought you'd never sell, and they sold for these great prices. And it was funny because I was talking to my parents' mail lady the other day, and she was telling me how her kids, her young girls, are asking for digital cameras because of the same thing you said. So here's my hot take. Are comics dead media too?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
once
dead
the
media.
month's over.
It's dead media that they are still trying to create content for. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm sure the last Nickelback album to be sold on CD might have been the greatest Nickelback album ever, but when the Nickelback phase ended and the pushback and the free downloads on Napster, and I'm just making all this up, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That could have been the worst selling album of all time because it was the last attempt to suck the marrow out of the CD and Nickelback fans. Does that make sense? But like I said, just like in the record industry, it takes one moment in time. It takes Jack White going, hey, remember those record stores? I used to love going to those things. Here's my new album. It's only available in record stores. Go find it, kids.
Yeah.
And the paradigm shift happens.
And keep in mind, comics is generational.
Yeah.
So that's really a generational question. Where does comic media end? Well, generational, it probably doesn't end for anybody that started in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Because guess what? They're probably still collecting backwards.
Yep.
So it doesn't really matter to them. 99 up is collecting traditionally forward. Not too many people start in 2021 and go backwards.
Well, and that's what I did when Kevin Dooley made Hal Jordan go insane and destroy all the Green Lanterns and made Kyle the only lantern and all that stuff. I literally stopped buying new books on that day. Or not that day, but like 2 issues in, and I was like, I'm done. And I went back to a spot in time in the 80s and said, okay, this is a jumping on point for the 80s Green Lantern. And I just bought every issue from that point up to the Gerard Jones run. And that was before we realized what Gerard Jones was really interested in.
Yeah.
But I had the most enjoyable reading experience from that point forward, while all my friends who were still reading Green Lantern new books were just miserable with it. And I think that's where we're at right now. There's so many people miserably reading, and there's the caveats are there's people who love Ultimate Spider-Man. There's people who love monsters. There's people who love Absolute Batman and Superman. I get that, but it's not the entire reading experience. It's not 20 titles a week and you're enjoying 18 of them.
Lord of Brooklyn says comics can't be dead media when manga outsells U.S. comics in the millions. Well, you got to remember, BK, that comics aren't manga. They're 2 different things. I'll never say that manga is comics and vice versa.
Captain Underpants and Dogman are not comic books.
Yeah,
but
they're manga.
They sell well in comic book stores.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that. When it gets into manga, it's manga anime talking to a comic book store. Even if a comic book store carries anime in their store, it's always in a separate section.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? It's not mingled in with comics.
Dude,
because
I bought the
They're different customers.
Yes.
I bought the One Piece box set. It's like 1 through 23. I bought it used from a customer. I didn't have it stocked in my store. And I put that thing out at $10 or $20 under the retail asking price for that box set. It sold within 24 hours. We bought in a PlayStation 2 Slim 2 weeks ago. It took 2 weeks for my staff to get around to testing it. We put it out. It sells within 24 hours. You know, the weird little things like this, there is markets out there, but the video game industry can't sell me something at wholesale that will sell as fast as that PS2 Slim. The comic book industry can't make me something that will sell as fast as that One Piece box set that the customer sold in, except for the person who makes the One Piece box set. And they just have to keep that in stock all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That the comic book industry is still trying to make floppies work, and they work, but they don't work as good as a lot of other things. And that's why I'm over here chasing these other things. And so many other people are saying, oh, well, yeah, but this is up and this is up. Well, yeah, but
they're not spending their time. They're not spending their time building the culture. There's a culture to comic books. And if they worked on building the culture, they would be vastly successful. But
exactly.
they've given up on it. Have you seen an ad anywhere for comic books?
Emmett, that is one of the. So this was so crazy, and I don't know, Dennis, if you got to see it, but at the end of that Mike Barron, Mark Miller interview, Mike Barron brings up the fact that the reason why the comics are dying is because the big publishers don't care to advertise. You know, he said that they had an in at one point where they could go to these, you know, movie theaters and put up comics at displays at these movie theaters, like Dennis said. He brings that up, Dennis, specifically, and he says they chose not to do that. And what a stupid move. And they don't talk about comics.
My initiative with Marvel and DC, and that I gotta watch that episode.
Yeah. Well, here's the funny thing, Emmett, Dennis, you probably would remember this. When MCU started coming out, what would we get in a next day air mailer? We would get
poster.
Poster. We would get tickets, right? Poster and tickets. Go check this out. Take some of your customers, rock and roll with them, have fun, right? Then what did they do? They took that away. Then what did they do 2016, 2017? They would send you one comic book for X-Men #1 that was specifically with your name inside it.
Yep.
So you get this one exclusive, but then what happened? People started selling those exclusives for $300 to $500 because they were a one shot, right? So they took that away. I don't understand the marketing. It's amazing.
Yeah,
manga is made to look cool, whereas comic books are for old people. I think manga still has that coolness factor. It's I
just said it earlier in this show.
Yeah,
my kids were forced to go to an anime convention until they weren't.
Yeah.
And so I want to go all the way back to what Dennis said about going back to the 80s, the Green Lantern. I sold 1,500 copies of Green Lantern Corps, Tales of the Green Lantern Corps, which is a 3-part series. You know when I sold those?
When Blackest Night happened?
When Blackest Night came out.
Yep.
Why? Because I would say to someone, do you really want to know who Necron is? Because you're not going to know if you start reading this Blackest Night at issue 1.
Yeah. Do you really want to know where the first time that Hal Jordan reads off the Green Lantern, saying? Well, here it is right here.
Right.
Yeah, here it is. And
then we also, but Emmett, and I know Emmett and all of us know this, the editors don't have the little notes at the bottom of the box anymore. Those little asterisks sold more back issues from the 70s and 80s than anything else. But the problem was the editors knew
they don't know anymore.
They don't know anymore, and they're too lazy to go over to Key Collector to find out what the damn issue is.
Yeah. Plus,
and they don't make any money selling those back issues, so why even promote it? Yeah,
exactly. They don't make money on it.
But what they lost their sight of was when there was 22,000 comic shops. That was their way of getting out to everybody because the spinny racks were gone. Mm-hmm. And then when the bust happened, because they weren't real partnering with us, we are their customer. They keep thinking the person reading the comic is their customer. No, that person's my customer.
Right, exactly.
I'm your customer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing the cycle that we've gone through, whether you're trying to promote culture, whether you're trying to promote tradition, when you're trying to promote something that's a back issue in your store, to without the help of a publisher or a distributor doing anything to help you do that. You create your own destiny. And again, we're all old timers. So imagine someone who just opened up a store. When I say Tales of Green Lantern Corps, they're like, what's that?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I got a funny story to tell you, and I think this is along with what Jesse was talking about. So back when we used to get invited to the press screenings, there was a nice little row. The front 2 rows of the screening were all of the comic book stores in the area. And for Captain America Winter Soldier, we had our little Wonderworld seats, and the other retailers, they had their seats. And the 3rd row is where the press wanted to sit. They didn't want to sit in the front 2 rows because, you know, it's too close to the screen for them.
Oh, yeah, by far.
So me and my kids were sitting in the row, and they're loving it. And they watch the whole, and movie's over, and they're all excited through the movie. Like, Dad, did you see that? It said Doctor Strange. It said Doctor Strange. Yeah, I know. So at the end, the lights go up, and we see the final scene, and the lights go up, and they're like, oh, Dad, that was so good. Oh, man, Winter Soldier was so cool, and he did this, and blah, blah, blah. And then the reporters all stuck around. Now, I was told they didn't usually stick around at that time. But there was 4 reporters for the newspapers and one of the local TV stations that were sitting right behind us. They wanted to talk to my kids. And they're like, why was this important? Oh, because like one of the things they showed was Doctor Strange when they showed all those names that they were targeting. And, oh, and this was over here because of this. And, you know, blah, blah, blah. And they're all just writing this down like, holy shit, these kids know what this is. This is like the Rosetta Stone, you know, blah, 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 blah. And they're writing all this down. And what they didn't understand is at that time, there were 1,500 geeks that could explain to the normies easily how important this stuff that the MCU was doing. And the marketing people did not have a clue, and they did not want to lose control of their narratives to a whole bunch of dorks that could explain it to the press. They wanted to explain it to the press. They wanted to tell the press, oh, this is important because of diversity, or this is important because of, you know, this thing or that thing, you know, and it's like, no, this is important because this is more bridges to this rest of this
They're
universe.
afraid of inside baseball.
Right.
That's right. Because they don't want normal people going, well, I'm not going to go see it. I won't understand anything that's going on. So they got to glaze over all that. That's why the best ones just put little things in there for us to nod at. A lot of the stories aren't close to anything we've ever read in a comic.
But the normies at the peak of this thing, the normies wanted us to be the sounding board. And as we sounding boarded against the DC movies at that time, like, oh, that was ridiculous. Oh, Martha. Oh, that's stupid. Which I thought Martha was actually the most brilliant thing in that fucking movie.
Yeah.
And blah, blah, blah. And the normies would be like, oh, what did you think about this? Or your customers would come in and go, oh, did you go to that screening last night? Oh my God, dude, wait till this thing comes out. This is going to be the best thing you've ever seen. We were the hub of that geek activity. And the second they froze us out because they didn't understand how to control us, well, you control us by making it good, and we'll just tell everybody it's good. But when they realized they couldn't control us, they couldn't make us love Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern. And it was the same marketing company that marketed Marvel's Civil War and Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern Company in the Detroit market. You know, it's always the same marketing firms. It's just different clients.
Well, here's a prime example, and me and Brian were talking about this. So my store is sponsored by Venom, the new movie, right?
Oh,
you know how many other stores are sponsored by Venom in the nation? 0. So they pick one store in the nation to say, oh my gosh, we're going to give you all the promos, we're going to do this, we're going to give you movie posters, we're going to give you tickets, we're going to do this. Promoting to one store only helps that one store.
Yeah.
Right? That is mind-boggling to me. That even when I ask them, like, well, who else is involved in this? Well, we just picked you. And I get it because I've done the last 150 with this marketing company. But at the end of the day, it's zero marketing. A prime example is a store in Arizona opened right next to a movie theater. And when I met the owner, I said, why'd you pick this spot? Well, when the customers come out of the movie theater from the Marvel and DC movies, they'll come into my store. Guy lasted 6 months. Why? Because
coming up on 3 years. Same idea.
Yeah.
But I'm not selling new $6 Marvel books.
That's all he was selling.
Stacks of $2 Marvel books.
So 6 months he came. I said, you're selling off? He goes, dude, these customers come out, they walk right past my store because they're so tunnel vision with the movie, and the movie isn't promoting go to a comic book store. They just keep on going. They then go to the place that sells the shirt or the hat, even though he probably did sell that as well. It's a tough market. This is a tough market. And I will tell you, when people come in, you could have a list of 50 things that you want to achieve in the comic book industry and as a comic book store owner. And I guarantee you, after a year, you will erase 40 that aren't even attainable and aren't even achievable. And you say to yourself, why did I even think I could do that? That's the challenges we face moving forward. But again, I think our best customers tend to move. We move forward, they move backwards, right? They're, I got to get this. I got to fill my golden age, or I got to fill my silver or my copper, right? So I'm excited. I'm very excited about 2025. And I think what we've learned over all these years of selling is the most important thing is you got to be selling comics. And all the other bells and whistles tied to that are kind of important, but are you actually selling comics is the most important.
Well, we have a great opportunity just this week, and not to trash on your partners with Sony, but I mean, look at Kraven the Hunter. It's flopped. Nobody knew who Kraven was except for comic book geeks. They thought they could literally put Aaron Taylor Johnson in a fourth geek movie and have him do this Kraven character and make it super gory because, Deadpool was gory. We can make this super gory. And what's a Kraven? I don't know what a Kraven is. If you don't have Spider-Man with Kraven, the Spider-Man fans have no idea what the hell a Kraven is. At least Venom, he looks like the Venom we saw in Spider-Man 3, Tobey Man 3. You can sell that. You can trade off of that, but you can't trade Madam Web. You can't trade Morbius. You can't trade Kraven. And now there's talks that that's it. They're giving up. Yeah. If we can't make these side projects work, why are we doing this?
Well, they're selling the rights of Spider-Man back to Marvel, supposedly. They're trying to figure out a way to get Marvel to buy the rights back.
Here's the issue, really. We watch movies all the time that have no connection to anything. People that are nobodies. That's what I saw them doing Kraven as, is like they were trying to make it an action picture and to be liked by anybody and everybody. And maybe it wasn't even part of a comic. There's been a lot of movies that came out that were comics. The Tom Hanks movie, Pride.
No.
Pride and Prejudice.
Road to Perdition. Right. So like people didn't even know that was a comic book. It's all about the same thing that comics are about. Is it a good story? Is there good art?
Yeah.
And
like, the directing's horrible. The stories are bad.
I think the best DC movie that has ever been made, aside from Superman 78 and Batman 89, is Watchmen.
So Emmett, you hit something on the head there that obviously we've been talking about a lot about on this channel and in the hobby for a while, but over the last couple of weeks, I've really noticed that more and more people are realizing that the content that is coming out is so bad that it's not worth them to spend the money to not only read it anymore, but to collect it anymore. I recently had a conversation with another content creator who straight up said to me, he goes, I was getting 100 books a month from my LCS. I decided to sit down and do actual really read and decide if I like these stories, and I realized that I didn't like any of them. There was no good stories in these books that I was getting, and that
I think that's maybe he didn't like. I mean, I do think that there are a lot that are not good, but there are a lot that are good.
But there's more than are not good than those that are good. Good content is few and far between.
That comes from this industry.
Exactly.
Propped up.
Yes.
And they only have 6 great stories, but they still have to put out 40 comics that month.
Well, they don't care. And here's another crazy thing. This is a crazy clip. Shout out to Gary, a.k.a. Nerdrotic. This blew me away. Listen to this.
I dodged so many bullets getting out of the comic industry in 2013.
All it took, Gary, was a relapse.
All it took was a relapse and my wife kicking me out of the house and ending up in sober living. But man, did I dodge a bullet.
That's crazy to hear. That the thought process is, it would have failed on me. I'm better that I lost the comic shop, that I got out of the comic shop. That's so crazy to me to hear, and it's the truth for most people. Not everybody is willing to pivot in different ways and think outside the box, and or they have other avenues of money that's coming in to support them, and the comic shop is more a labor of love. Like, that's what this is becoming, and it feels like so many of us are trying to resurrect an extinct dinosaur rather than continue to love something that is thriving.
I did Swag's call-in show. And I said, what were the 4 biggest movers, needle movers, but that kind of led us to doing the needle mover episode? And it was Kirkman's G.I. Joe. I can't remember all of them. What was the other one? Damn it. I can't remember what the other one was. And then the third one was Monsters. This little nothing book, and then Absolute Batman. Oh, that's what it was. It was Absolute Batman, Ultimate Spider-Man, Kirkman's G.I. Joe Kickstarter, and Monsters. Because all of those showed there's a different way to do what you guys have been trying to do, rehash and reboot and all of this stuff. There's a different way to do it, and the customers are responding to that. You can let this legacy dead media sit around in boxes and put together 155 issues all by yourself, or you can buy this Kickstarter, get a hardcover, compendium version of all the issues, or you can keep doing 100 different Batman titles under the same Batman universe and try to explain that there's 3 Jokers and there's this many Batmans and there's this many continuities, or you could just say, here's an Elseworld.
Yeah, here's
Absolute
a good
Batman
story. Yes.
Yep. Here's a good story that we want to tell, but we don't have a way to tell this down here with the rest of this.
That's why What If and Elseworlds were so great. You could tell those stories without messing up your history and what your continuity and what people love. Once they starting over again and then saying we're never going to do it, and 2 years later we're going to start over again, so just call it a What If or an Elseworlds tale. Like, get over this.
Yeah, I think you have to tell and Dennis kind of said what I'm getting ready to say. You have to tell the story. I think why I'm very successful on eBay, I recognize that a lot of my customers are 30 to 40 years old. So I get to tell my story when I'm showing that Superman 75, I get to tell my story when I'm selling that poly bag. And so they hear my story, and it's their opportunity to be part of that story for something they weren't even alive in. So that's new to them, right? To think that a modern customer has no idea the impact of Death of Superman is amazing. Waiting in line, opening up a black bag, watching someone open up a platinum bag, and you're like, even at 19 years old, I'm like, what are you doing, right?
Trying to find out how you can get a piece of tape to tape that armband on.
Yeah, exactly. The small armband. And so I think it's our job to, I'm always a positive person about comic books. I think we're at a great stage in comic books if you tell the story right. And our job is to tell the story right. And people need to know why we've done this for so long.
Yeah.
I need to tell people the 12-year-old that was selling in a comic book, managing a comic book store in 1982, pimping out Wolverine #1 miniseries.
And the part of that is exactly what the guy at NEC did. He wanted people to understand this was my life's passion, but I need to walk away while I can still walk.
Well,
yeah, I'm going to disagree with that one, because that guy's passion dealt with 92 through 99. All right. That was a tough time for comic book store owners. Yeah. So he had a different pathway he was looking at. I mean, we could look at COVID and say, well, that's kind of our difficult time in our path, but we came out with a better platform. And we pivoted it a lot. So I don't know how much pivoting you could do from 97 to about 2001.
Well,
I don't think you're ever going to see the end of comic books. I don't care what anybody thinks about the decline of this. It's an art form. Art forms live beyond people viewing the art. So there's lots of books that they did not move the needle. But 10 years from now, everybody will be like, where is this book? And you'll have to be finding trades for it. Miles Morales. Everybody's like, oh, everybody's on it. Everybody loves Miles. No, they didn't. That book did not sell when it came out. There's a lot of books like that. Sandman didn't do that great right away when it came out. I'm a true comic book guy. I don't like Sandman because it's not, to me, it's prose and words.
Years after Miles came out, Marvel had Miles' first appearance, second printings as freebies with BOGOs to get rid of them all.
Yeah.
And I gave those away for free at a free comic book day and put one of my stickers on every one of them because I had so damn many of them. And then, of course, luckily I still had several hundred of them when they were hitting like hundreds of dollars a piece.
Yep.
Well, here's one of my things that I still believe in more and more every year or every month. I feel like this grows, this thought process grows with me. I feel like the publishers, the big publishers, Marvel and DC, they don't care anymore about the art form. They've become too much of a corporate. Well, they cared before they were a corporate entity. When there was when Stan Lee was the head of publishing, or the CEO, or Julie Shorts was the head of the editor, the head editor. It wasn't run by these different groups within a huge corporation that is Time Warner, or a big corporation that is Disney, that just don't care about the art form. And what I mean by that is this: you got people who are horrible at the art form, horrible writers, horrible artists that are doing a constant work, okay? And then you've got amazing creators. Perfect examples: Lobos, Torrin Clark, Mark Spears, who got chewed up and spit out by this, this industry, and now at the ages of 40, the mid to late 40s, are breaking into the industry in major ways and becoming the biggest, creators in the industry that have been trying to get in the industry and do this for a long time, but nobody wanted them. And it makes me feel like, why didn't you want them?
But Brian, let me just add, You just talked about Mark Millar and Mike Barron, and I listen to Chuck Dixon every once in a while, and I listen to Rob Liefeld every once in a while. The fact that these guys, when you reached that point in the industry 20 years ago, you ran the industry. You know, Paul Levitz ran the fucking industry. You know what I'm saying? Jim Shooter ran the fucking industry.
Yeah.
Okay. They ran their parts because they were elder statesmen. They understand everything that came before them. They had a vision of where they wanted to take it, and they were allowed to take it there. And I'll tell you what I think it happened. What?
I totally disagree. If they wanted to keep and grow it and get it bigger and better, they should have taken care of the industry. None of them. You can go back all the way back. Stanley, the lot of them. They didn't take care of the artists or the writers. They didn't pay them and take care of them and give them rights. All that is why we're where we're at, because Shooter was well known for bullying guys. Listen, if you leave, you're not going to get over there. You know, if you don't leave, you know, about moving artists between DC and Marvel back and forth so they could lower their price on them. Guys had to leave to try to make more money, and they'd get less money because they knew that DC wouldn't want them anymore. So
yeah, but Emmett, at least those guys actually knew the history of comics, were comic fans, knew what comics were, knew how the art form was made, how it was created. These people that are running the big companies now, they have no idea what comics are. They have no idea of the history of comics. None of that stuff.
Jim Steranko did 50 covers for Marvel Comics and then just said, cool, I'm out. You guys can't pay me enough. And he never came back except for a couple like, hey, Jim, do you want to do some random thing for us? Sure, I'll do, I'll toss something new at you. But if you knew your worth, you walked away when they weren't paying it to you. And a lot of the guys, look at John Byrne. John Byrne demanded his money, or he didn't do shit. You didn't get John Byrne unless you wrote that John Byrne check.
Right.
So I think a lot of people worked too hard because they didn't know their worth. And when the industry was done with them, or when they decided their worth, they got chewed up and spit out. I'll agree with you.
Yeah. Well,
but the guys who then went over and did their own thing, Todd, Silvestri, Rob, Jim, all
Brian
those
Pulido.
guys.
Right now, Mark Spears Monsters,
Billy Tucci.
Well, it was great. It was great when it was young and it was new, but now the gates are kept by the people who broke down the gates.
I disagree with you. Mark Spears, Monsters, the gates were plenty locked for him. They didn't have no place for a guy that talked like Mark Spears anywhere in their cocktail parties.
Yeah, but if
Mark
he started
Spears
his own. But if he started his own publishing company and started moving up and bringing people in to do other books, they would treat them just as they were treated. It's the way, one, it's human nature, two, it's business. Yeah. I mean, are we making a profit or are we making a product? Are we starting a culture? It can be done, but it takes people to work really hard at it, whether they know. I mean, the books were better back then, but they didn't treat their people any better, and they don't treat them that great now. I mean, really get some guys on and ask them not the top guys, some guys that are like slagging it away on C-level books at DC, what they're getting a page. It would shock you.
Yeah. Bottom line, it's very plain and simple. And Emmett, you already said it. These guys in the top levels are looking for one thing. How many books did we sell? How much money did we make on those books? Everything else, that they don't handle that type of stuff. That's not in their wheelhouse. So you really got to go down that chain in that business and find out, okay, who is responsible for making sure those page rates are up or down or even? And then how are they cross-referencing that to being a profit? I was talking to Brian about, you could say X-Force Polybag sold 1 million copies, but actually how many copies sold? That's what matters. So if you took 1 million copies and you sold, let's say 400,000 copies of those books, your margins aren't going to be that good. But if you did 500,000 books and you sold 350,000, guess what is better? the 500,000 versus the million. And so when you get to those levels, and everybody does this, right? I did it in corporate. When I get up to the top, this is what I'm going to do when I get up to the top. And as I get going to the top, well, I really can't do that anymore, because then it shows favoritism, or it does this, and you get stuck in that political part of the business. And I think comics is so spread out that's a challenge for anybody that comes into this fresh to kind of figure it out within the first 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. And then,
even as a store.
And a lot of these people that have been writing and working
Doesn't know
comic
it, but a year from now.
Sorry about that.
have done this convention scene, and this is how they've gotten on at Marvel or DC. It's all in the bar and the dinners and the spending time with these people, and they go, "Oh, I'd really like to work with them." You don't know how good their work is, but you know they had a book here or there, and now all of a sudden they're writing for Marvel on a title they don't have the experience or the chops to write, and it's the same over at DC. And they should get away from that nepotism.
Well, but then the flip side of that is John Layman, who we had on the show 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, who navigated his way through the industry to the point where he's got this book and he's got this book, and that's all he wants to do. And they're begging him to do these other books, and he's like, "No, I'm good."
Yeah, outer limits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a challenge, but I will tell you, at the end of the day, you just have to be smart about your business, and you kind of got to look what works for your business structure. I remember John, because John's in Arizona. John has done like 10, 15 signings at the store. And when he was doing Detective Comics, and I'd go out and buy all these Detective Comics, guess what people are bringing to the table? Can you sign my Chew? Can you sign my Chew? Right? So you at that moment, you have to switch, get all the Chew stuff out there. Take that detective stuff off. No one cares about the detective stuff. So it's very, very interesting where we're at. But I think, again, 2025 is going to be a stellar year. I think socially, it's going to be amazing. I think you'll see a lot more shows like this. You got to keep in mind, we're a very unique show. We are industry bound. We have opinions, but a lot of our opinions are with facts.
Well, you said something very interesting, and I want to end the show on this topic. The fact that 2025, I think, is going to change. We're going to see changes in the comic industry, lasting, that are going to cause lasting changes, and one of them being the fact that you're seeing comic book content creators like this channel and other content in other channels as being more important than the stores themselves and the publishers themselves and stuff like that, that they're going to be one of the most important things in the comic industry. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit, Jesse?
Yeah, so I think there's a acceptability factor that's happening now, that people are willing to listen to maybe a younger guy with his opinion of the 90s, even though he wasn't born in the 90s, right? And it's like, okay, at first I really didn't get that. But then what it did was it made me think smarter and saying, okay, well, what would be the response to that? And you become smarter by being challenged with someone that might not have all the information. So how do you incorporate with them? And it's also the fact that the listeners are more acceptable to listening to the three of us, the four of us now, instead of waiting to go into the comic book store. I think the notion that there are people out there, Swag, who came out first with this story about Beckett this morning, right off the bat. It wasn't a 6 o'clock story. It was like 5 minutes after it was announced and already had something out talking about it. So I think this is a source that will be more acceptable. You don't have to actually own a comic book store. You can actually have a great opinion that people are going to listen to. Where I get nervous sometimes is when I do see a show that we consider good that had 5,000 views. We're in the music industry. You know, you don't get 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. We have a big way to go still, and that's learning. But expect a lot of shows in 2025 to be more informative. The biggest thing I will tell you that's going to happen is what we did with Emmett. Emmett, here's a link. Come in. And I think you're going to see a lot of open mic shows happen where the fans in 2025 are then be part of the shows, either doing showing what they got at their comic book store, promoting what they got in their comic book store, how long they've been doing this, or the excitement they have. So I think socially, in this medium of content creators, experiencers, and influencers, we will have a great year in 2025 that will impact the sales of not only new issues, back issues, but the combination of Kickstarters and fifth market sales.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about that, Dennis?
I absolutely agree. And I agree because it's kind of the industry has forced very smart people to finally speak up. Jesse stopped new books 8 years ago.
Yeah, 8 years ago. Yep.
I stopped owning a comic shop after my heart attack 7 years ago. I stopped carrying new books 4 years ago, 2019. Then there's this thing called the pandemic that stopped everything and moved people like me to get my comic book information from people like Brian McClay down there. But there was something missing in that content.
Yep.
That Jesse and I felt we needed to help adjust so that this content would be better. The perspective of our experiences. And then at that same time, you got young bucks like this kid over here who did a 3-part, 2-hour interview with me on my new concept store. And then we now bring him into our content. And at the same time, we bring people like Swaggle House and Niobe and my son on last week for, hey, you guys know what's going on with this. Educate us old people. We don't understand it. And all the people in the chat are like, oh, shit, this is something now.
Yeah, I think for the longest time, also a lot of comic store owners and guys who are, considered like titans in the LCS world didn't want to put themselves out and create a show.
Yeah.
And now you've got people
some of
like
the biggest names to come on this show, and they won't have anything to do with it.
And now you got people like Emmett creating a YouTube channel. You've got you guys doing this industry show with me. You've got every once in a while you'll see these longtime LCS guys doing shows now and being more open to jumping on a show like this and talking candidly. Because that's the other thing, a lot of comic shop owners don't want to rock the boat because then they're worried that they're going to get,
they want to give up the secrets. They think there's these secrets that will, make us sell books. There's no secret. It's
rule number 4: give your knowledge and experience freely.
Yep.
Amen.
Yep.
Yeah. So what's your thoughts on that, Emmett? Since you're doing what you're doing in 2024, how do you see yourself pivoting, advancing your platform in 2025
with the YouTube and the content?
Yeah. So I am going to up my YouTube content probably in the new year, 3 shows a week. So adding 2 shows a week. One of them is possibly going to be live because I agree with Jesse. I think people really love to be involved and participate. I'm pretty good off the cuff, so that'll be better than my other shows where I'm always forgetting what I'm going to say. But what I see for 2025 is in that we have to keep moving forward, now that I'm only have one job and it's going to be the shop, online is going to become a big part of the business because I have a ton of inventory and it needs to move at any price to keep that cash flow turning so that I can buy collections. You know, you can't buy collections if you're not selling books. Yep. So that, and then, you know, in the store, we've already started to redesign the store, move stuff around, make it cleaner, better in any which way we can. And that's, you know, incrementally keep going on. Some of the things I see for 2020, I think maybe not 2025, but restoration of comics will no longer be a dirty word. I see that coming. If you buy a $1 million painting and you have it restored, it's worth more, not less. Comics are an art form. If you could get a copy, if you have it professionally done by somebody who really can do it, it should be worth more than, you know, a copy that isn't restored, that's in worse condition. But it's not. You can get a 0.5 will make more money than a restored copy. Hell, I've seen facsimiles make more money than a restored copy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think restoration will come around into the
Yeah.
industry.
And then I just want to talk about something real quick here before we leave. So I want to talk about this conversation about new issues and the year that it's had. I will tell you, before you go out and talk about new issues and the year that it's had, you need to put in all the dynamics and all the sales from all the platforms into one kitty. Not just take one thing and say, well, because of distribution through the three people, comics are down, new issues are down. You have to add Kickstarters. Kickstarters are new issues, folks. Publishers that are doing Kickstarters are doing new issues. And if you don't add those numbers to your numbers, you will not have the right numbers. So we have actually had, when you put those two numbers together and all the exclusives that are done, which is virtually impossible, but all these local exclusives and all that, we have actually had a pretty even year. Not a plus year, but we have not been in this dire straits that I am listening to. So I will tell you, put the numbers together, look at the Kickstarter numbers, just look at Image, Skybound. Look at those numbers. You're not going to add those numbers to new issues? That makes no sense. So that's my point.
But every facsimile, I love how every facsimile adds to those new comic numbers, but a reprint of a box set of nothing but facsimiles does it.
Shout out to Plungecast that says, it was interesting listening to Shop talk about stores. I used to own one here in New Zealand a decade ago. So that's the other thing, you guys. I want to say to all the current LCS owners, former LCS owners, I really hope that you guys make your presence more known on this show. We want to see you guys comment below. We want to see people like Plungecast make comments like this. And we want to see you guys on these panels. We want to hear from you guys. That's why this show was made. So to everybody out there that is in this industry and that is thinking about maybe taking that step to be more talkative about the industry that you love, maybe you don't love it anymore, and there's a reason. We want to know why. This is a place that you can do it. So just know that. Let us know what you're thinking.
Yeah, so. and it's okay to disagree with us. I mean, we are very, very open. If you're opinionated or your experience shows something different, then I am more open to that. The other guy, good luck on that. He'll probably start texting you, Facebook messaging you for about 4 hours straight. I do want to say something funny that happened. That show that we were on with Nick Barucci till 3 a.m, which I think was your Saturday show 2 weeks ago. So I was on there. Me and Nick were talking. Hey, Nick, give me a call. You know, Nick called me at 10 a.m. that morning.
Holy shit.
And we talked for another 3 hours. I'm like, dude, I just asked a simple question. So people do love this, but we love having this platform. I know when we first started, we weren't sure how this would go. But 44 shows later, I think we've had a blast. I love having Emmett on. He has what's going on in his neck of the woods. And the final point I'm going to say is keep in mind, where a comic book store isn't the same how it is at another comic book store.
Right. No.
Well, that's why
everyone is different.
But Jesse,
Yep.
that's why we started it. We kind of have lost the ability to do that. But that's why our main question to those first 20 or 30 guests that we had on this show, what is a comic shop? And noticed very few of them said it's a new bookstore that sells the Diamond catalog.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah.
Everyone had a different, it's a meeting place for people of like-minded hobbies. It's a this, it's a that. And when you compile all of those answers together, you don't see just one store. You see a hobby. You see an industry that has this one particular through line in it, which is the first market. I'm going to reiterate that of a place that has comics for sale to the customer.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, there
All
we go,
right.
you guys. 2 hours, 41 minutes. I want to say thank you to these three guys that helped us get through the show. And thank you to everybody that it was live in the chat. Right now, there are 88 of you watching. We have 50 likes. If any of the 88 of you have not hit that like button or are not subscribed, please think about doing so. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that like button. If you really
Brian,
enjoyed it,
I threw the direct link for our Amazon in the private chat.
okay.
If you want to share that, people were asking how they can go straight to my Amazon store.
Yep. If you enjoyed the show enough that you want to check out other shows on the channel, please hit that subscribe button. We're very close to 3,000 subs, you guys. Let me see where we are at right now. We are at... Come on. 2,958 subscribers. It would be great to get to 3,000 subs before the end of the year. And if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, you guys.
I'm giving away a really cool prize if he hits 3,000 by the end of this year. Is this our last show of the year?
I don't know. I know we're going to take off. We're going to take off the week of Christmas, obviously.
Yeah.
So that's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Emmett, where are you at?
I'm at 34 Front Street in Port Jervis, New York. But I'm also, when you finish at Dennis's store on Amazon, go over to the movies and see me in Full Moon Fever. It's only $2.99 to rent. You can get a look at my comic store in the movie on Amazon.
That's sick.
I just wanted to add one more thing. As everybody knows, I am now the president of the comic book industry. I will be giving the state of the comic book industry address early January when we come back from our recess. And
have a podium and everything?
You don't want to miss that. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
It's going to be huge. It's going to be huge.
Emmett, so when they came in and did the filming,
Yeah.
did they tell you it's going to be 3 hours and then it took like 25 hours?
Yes.
Yeah. Is that crazy? I have had four. I've been in four movies. My store has been in four movies.
One of
And
them
every
was
time-
one that
one
I
of
was
them
there
is-
for.
Oh, yeah, you're in. And Brian is in one of them. Oh, we'll only be here for 2 hours. Brian's group was in for like 18 hours.
Okay,
And
so
never said, do you want a cookie? Do you want any of this
nothing.
coffee over here?
If you're not a SAG member, you're not.
so the first time somebody came to me and said, "Oh, can we film in your store?" I actually executive produced a movie. I have an IMDb credit. It's called Witch Hunter. It's great bad movie making. So yada yada yada. I'm like, hey, sure, guys, come on in. And it was that same. Oh, we only need an hour.
Yeah.
And 4 hours later, insert the SpongeBob meme. I'm
Let's
like,
go. Grim Fairy Tales number 40.
I've got to wrap this up, man. I got to go home. I got, shit I got to do.
Yeah.
And so the second time I got asked, I was like, yep, we close at 7:00. I need you to pay an employee to sit here with you to make sure you don't break my shit. I'm out. And you could film all night long. And then the third time, I was like, it was actually 48 hours, I think, or not 40. No, it was one of the TV shows. They did the comic book murders. And they shot all the pickup footage in my store. And I told them, look, I just need $50 an hour to rent the store so I can have the staff on duty. And they were like, there you go.
Yeah.
Well,
And I was like, now, after that point, it's a commodity. Our stores are a commodity.
Yeah. Comic book store murders, folks. If you haven't seen that documentary, it is a crazy real story.
I was a witness in the first trial.
Oh, were you? Yeah.
Yeah.
That was if you have not seen it, there's a documentary on it that it's an amazing story. As a comic book fan, as a comic book store owner, you're actually living through it because they're talking about the backside of a comic book store and how everything's happening. It's like, holy cow, I got to put an extra lock over here and I got to put a camera over here.
Actually, I had tons of evidence for the prosecution. They actually let me watch the crime scene camera that they brought through the store. And if you remember, and there was this mysterious short box full of all these rare comics that she was murdered for.
Yep.
And I'm looking at that list and I'm like, guys, have you ever seen a 1990 Overstreet guide? I'll bring one in. And I'm like, okay, that book in Overstreet's worth $20. That's worth $50. That's worth. Now go to that camera footage. See that back wall of that right there? That book is this book right here. It's worth $200. That book right there is this book. It's worth $100. Why did they steal this box in the back, but they didn't take the register full of money or any of these books on the back wall? And they were like, oh, okay.
So
who is this?
On our way out, I want to send everybody over to show some love to our good friend Ben Steiniger, who is doing a live Whatnot sale right now. This is his first time back on Whatnot in many years, and he's got some great bangers, and he's one of the best people in this community and somebody you should definitely show your love for. So shout out to House of Stein. Go show him some love. Go spend some money with them. And we'll see you guys next time.
Just real fast, Brian, I just want to say, if you go in the room, say hi.
Yes.
If you just say hi, that boosts, number one, his show. It increases his algorithms over Google and everything. So, but it doesn't help if you just go in and be silent. You got to go in and at least say, hey, howdy. Hey,
say
Brian
that you're
sent me
joining
over.
from the Beyond Wednesday channel show, and that's why you're there. It'll really help him out. And you guys, I'm telling you, you guys can get some really great books from Ben Stein.
Is that Hawkeye Deadpool the one where they have the fake female Thor in it? Is that the one?
Yes, that is the one. Hawkeye Deadpool number 0, the fake female Thor and the fake Gwenpool too.
Yeah.
Or
what,
not
Brian?
Gwenpool, Spider-Gwen.
What I want to do is the display he's using. We need to make a top 25 displays used to selling comic books on live platforms.
That'd be fun.
Crazy ass stuff that people use to display their books.
That's awesome. That's a great
What,
idea.
you need another award, Jesse? Jesus Christ.
What? Oh, I know. Oh, you should see how trust me. It is crazy how I display my books. But fantastic job, folks. Happy holidays. We want to thank everybody. Happy holidays from my family to yours, to you three guys and your families. I know Dennis is traveling to Phoenix for Christmas. So everybody have a good one. Be safe out there. And don't forget, if you ever see a customer, if you're reading a comic and you see someone not reading a comic, grab a comic, put it in their hand too, so they can read with you.
Amen. That being said,
Emmett,
you guys,
thanks for coming on, man.
Emmett, we love you,
anytime,
brother.
fellas. I love it. Take care, man.
We'll see you guys tomorrow on the Wednesday night review, and then come hang out with us on Thursday for another crazy whatnot sale, and back again Friday with this guy right here, Ben Steiniger for the House of Steinhot 10, and then right back here again Saturday night for Modern Comic Mayhem. Look at those beautiful Spawn books. Ooh,
Oh, I know. There you go, right there. Get your Spawn on, folks.
Yep. That being said, we'll see you guys next time. Adios.
Okay.